Welcome into Between the Pylons. I'm John Camacho.
And this is Jacob Waters.
And guys, we have a behemoth of a show for you guys today. The full free agent breakdown. Guys, I'm going to let you know, we are recording this on a Thursday night. The show's coming out late, but we wanted to wait as long as we could to still get a show out this week. Going to come out hopefully on Wednesday. We'll see. And I'm going to cut this up into divisions as well. So if you're just interested in like hearing one division, hey, you can either go in the timestamps and you can check it out that way, or you can go to a different video on the Between the Pylons YouTube channel and click it there. So please, we encourage you, if you just want to listen to one team, that's fine, but we're talking every single team and we're going to break it down division by division. This is going to be a long one.
We're going to be here. That's okay though.
I'm excited. Look, we changed our schedules for this. We changed everything up. I am pumped. Been working on these graphics all day, so give me some love in the comments for these awesome graphics that your amateur Photoshop expert over here did. Amateur Photoshop expert, you like that? All right, before we get into that, we got to touch on this really quick, and we're not going to spend a lot of time because it's a developing story. Deshaun Watson is not going to get traded this offseason. I'll put it that way, because there are some sexual harassment allegations with some masseuses or Instagram models or whatever. I don't know the full story, but apparently there's going to end up being 6 cases of separate cases of sexual assault to masseuses. It's a developing story. We have Deshaun Watson's camp categorically denying any wrongdoing. We have multiple women coming out. We have what I've heard from certain people saying that it's a shady lawyer. I know nothing about the lawyer that's bringing these lawsuits against him, so I'm not going to speak on that personally, but I've heard people say that it's a shady lawyer that's doing this. I don't know what to think about this. I wanted to bring it up really quick at the top, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that we definitely have to mention just so we can follow this story going forward, because Deshaun Watson has been one of the biggest names this entire offseason. You know, it's weird now that his name is in everybody's mouth talking about it, and now this story comes to fruition. I hope the truth comes out, no matter what it is, no matter what. I hope we can solely focus on the truth and separate, fact from fiction and take it for what it is and go forward with however it may be, because we don't know, none of us can speak on that. Best of luck to the truthers out there.
Yeah, exactly.
That's literally all we can say.
As long as the truth comes out, it is what it is.
It's an awkward spot to be in.
Exactly. And what more is there to say about it? We'll leave it at that. Okay, so let's get into the draft, or let's get into free agency, and we're gonna put the first graphic up. Who are we gonna talk about? We're gonna talk about the AFC East first, and let's get into it with the big decision makers in the AFC East, the New England Patriots. Putting this graphic up for you guys. Look, a lot of additions right there, man.
Oh,
just
of course.
A ton. I'll let you take it over.
They spent a record amount of money. It was well over $200 million. Yeah. In 10 years, Bill Belichick had spent around $400-something million in 10 years of running the New England Patriots. This offseason, he flipped the script, completely did it. He revamped, reloaded, got everything good. And, he is just an absolute genius with his ability to maneuver certain roster moves. I'll mention one that I don't even know if it's up here. It's Kyle Van Noy. A guy that they lost, got a comp pick back for it, got cut by the Dolphins because of that, and then they still have that comp pick that hasn't even been awarded to that they are going to draft with, and now they have Kyle Van Noy back on roster for a cheaper deal. Listen, the man plays chess while the rest of the people are playing checkers. Yeah. I love a lot of these acquisitions. Some of the offensive line moves kind of different, but that was just to move some money around, if you will. Trent Brown was a huge land getting him back. The Patriots are masters at running guys in their own system, and somehow able to get them back all the time. Yeah. It is a staple piece in what Belichick does. Giannou and Hunter Henry, I would say, headline this class. What do you think about that going forward? Interesting, man. Really interesting. I think there was a lot of talk about one of these guys was going to go to the Patriots, right? Like, the Patriots have been trying to find the next good tight end in the mid-rounds, which we know it's possible. Look, you look at all the star tight ends in the league, they all came from, like, the mid-round of the NFL draft. Like, all of the guys that go in the first round, we can talk about Njoku, we can talk about Evan Ingram, we can talk about all those guys. Howard. But I mean, the stars are Kelsey and Kittle, right? And they were mid-round picks, and the Patriots have swung and missed on tight ends a lot. Now they go through free agency. Look, we can talk about their drafting all the time. Like, Patriots drafting hasn't always been great, and especially in recent years, they've missed a lot of draft classes, but they seem to always hit on these free agents. I think Belichick in general is a much better evaluator of talent in the NFL than he is
is from college, and makes sense. Like, he's a genius. Like you said, checkers versus chess. Interesting to see both these guys in the same team. If you're a fantasy guy, you hate it because it seems like it kills the value for both of them.
It does.
And it's like, they both might be top 10 tight ends in fantasy, but that doesn't mean anything unless you're like top 5. There's not a lot of difference between the 8th tight end in fantasy and the 17th tight end in fantasy. So I don't know the value there, but for the football team, I mean, that's a huge get. Huge get for Cam Newton as the quarterback. Who was his favorite target for all those years in Carolina? Olsen. I mean, he loves throwing his tight end. Yeah. So, I mean, I'm excited about it. I think it was some good moves there.
I'm happy to see it for Cam Newton. Now, there is still some controversy going ahead. They are going to add another quarterback to this team. We don't know who, when, where, what it could be. We've heard rumors about Jimmy Garoppolo being contacted, trying to see if they could pull their way back onto that. So, I want to see Cam going forward. I'm a Cam Newton fan. I think he gets a lot of flack in areas that he shouldn't. In some areas, he's very well deserving of that, getting some flack. Trying too much. He lost some games on his own doing. But last year, I think they were devoid of all talent on all levels. So let's see him actually get a true run at it. I think he's going to get that this year, assuming that quarterback stays where it's at.
Look, and we're going to spend a little bit longer on New England than a lot of these other teams just because, I mean, there's so much going on here. Nelson Aguilar and Kendrick Bourne, both wide receivers they bring in. Listen, some people are going to hate it. The Patriots still need a wide receiver one. Like, they don't have one. But I mean, you talk about grabbing some wide receiver 2s and 3s that were pretty good last year and just pretty all right wide receivers. Look, Nelson Aguilar, he's a roller coaster of a career so far, and he's at a high point right now, and he's getting paid. Fans. Yeah, exactly. And I don't know what to think. Like, is he going to fall off the face of the earth? It's very, very possible. Kendrick Bourne, you're talking about a former undrafted guy who ended up finding a spot as the wide receiver 3 for the 49ers for a lot of years. I don't know what to expect from these guys, but it's a very Patriots move to avoid the top names and go for the tier 2, tier 3 wide receivers in the class.
That's exactly what they did. I would look ahead to the NFL draft because I think so. A lot of people had it scripted. Kyle Pitts. You could not look at mock drafts and not see one that had Kyle Pitts going to the Patriots because of how big of a monster he is of an offensive weapon and Bill Belichick's love for drafting tight ends often. So I think with the acquisition of Hunter Henry and Gianni, I think it kills the Kyle Pitts thing. Yeah. Yes, he is so much of an offensive threat that there is a chance they could still take him and convert him to a wide receiver or something. But that's not what I want Pitts to do. I think Pitts could excel at that level playing like a Darren Waller, George Kittle-ish. Sure. So I think it's going to be wide receiver.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's either that or Trey Lance is my sneaky. I would love to see Trey Lance. For me. Oh, really? Okay, so that's very different. So I look at Cam Newton, and I think, like, if that's the type of quarterback they want, and maybe it's not, maybe Cam Newton's just their best option. That's how they felt for the past 2 years. Like, you got to think, Cam Newton was signed very late in the process last year. It was like hey, you can be our starter if you sign for pennies, basically. And this year it was, not as late, but the Patriots are probably looking around saying there's no better options out there. Yeah. And I kind of get where they were coming from with both of those. There's been a lot of reports of them calling for just about every quarterback out there. So I don't know what type of quarterback they're looking for. But I look at Kyle Pitts, or I look at Trey Lance as a guy. He could sit for a year. If he could sit for a year behind a Cam Newton and learn and kind of fix the mechanical issues and then go into a Patriots offense that is like built around a mobile quarterback. That would be crazy. That would be interesting. And I totally get the Mac Jones side of it too.
I get the Mac Jones thing, yeah.
Yeah, Mac Jones, I mean, I'll let you go for it, but I think
I just think when you look at the type of build that Belichick has shown that can work, I see similarities. I'm not reaching here and saying that Mac Jones is Brady. I see similarities in a pocket presence quarterback because the way that the NFL is changing nowadays, you just don't see that a lot. Mac Jones, I think, is unique in saying that he is one of the only true pocket passers out of this class. I think if there's a guy that could take him and succeed with him, it would be Josh McDaniels and Bill Belichick.
Yeah. So let's finish up the conversation with the Patriots to go to draft needs. And listen, there's probably still going to be more. We're recording this on Thursday night. Not everybody has signed. A lot of guys haven't, but this is what we know so far. And this seems like the Patriots have done the majority of what they're going to do. They still need a wide receiver. They're going to have to get a quarterback of the future. One of the quarterbacks in this class is going to the Patriots. I would be shocked if they don't take a quarterback in the first 2 rounds. I'd be shocked. I really would. And maybe that's bold. Defensive tackle, they still need help with. They got rid of Adam Butler and didn't really replace him with anybody. Like Devon Gottschall is a guy from the Dolphins who's been pretty good for a lot of years, but like I mean,
he's a good stuffer.
Yeah, he's not a difference maker, but he fits the scheme perfect though. Dolphins and Patriots have a very similar scheme though, defensively anyway. And then the one that's not on this graphic that I think I want to mention is offensive line. They made a lot of moves with offensive line, and that's why we didn't put it up there. But they also made a lot of trades. Like they traded Marcus Cannon. They traded a Joe Thuney. And
two of their former
they didn't trade, but they let go of Joe Thuney. But they traded Marcus Cannon, and you're absolutely right. Yeah. So I mean, I think O-line should probably be somewhere. They're gonna have to go O-line probably first 3 rounds as well. Yeah. You good there?
I think we covered it. We didn't mention Matthew Judon. I think it is a massive sign. I am worried about him getting outside of the Baltimore system in itself, but if there's a way that they could use him at a hybrid spot, New England, I think he could do well in New England.
I absolutely agree. Let's move over to the Buffalo Bills, and this is a little different. They didn't have a ton of additions, right? I mean, really, you only have Emmanuel Sanders, Matt Hawk as the punter, the former Dolphins punter going in, and I wouldn't put punter up there, but that was really all we have as of right now. They move on from a John Brown, which we called, by the way, just saying.
Yes.
And they re-signed some of their talent. They re-signed a Darrell Williams, which I think like he could have gotten some money on the open market. I like Darrell Williams. He's a good tackle. Matt Milano they got to deal with. Andre Smith they got to deal with. They still need help at all the places they still need help at. And I want to go here with this. They need D-line help and they need wide receiver help bad.
They do because Emmanuel Sanders is a good 3, I would say, but you really are looking for I thought they were going to make a splash. I honestly thought they were going to try to get and they still could, a Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, and really have 2 solid ones because I think Buffalo is that close to doing it to where if they ignore some of these holes that they have on defense, the D-line especially, they have to have a true, purebred pass rusher. Someone's got to help that team out. So if they don't go that direction, they haven't. I thought they were going to do it with the offensive side of the ball. I don't know. We'll still see.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, look, they've missed on some of their picks at D-line in recent years. They need help there. They definitely need help there. You talk about Emmanuel Sanders. Look, I get he's a big name. People, he's a good player. There's a reason he's been on 3 teams in 3 years. I mean, there is.
I think he's a good wideout.
He's fine, but he's on his last leg, and how many games is he going to play this year? I don't know. I don't think he's a guy that I don't think he's an upgrade from a John Brown. John Brown, he's a number 2 receiver, number 3 receiver as well. John Brown isn't like a game breaker. I wouldn't say he has fast, but his contact balance is. I mean, he can get jumped off the line very easily or pushed off the line very easily. So they need a wide receiver too. Obviously they have Diggs, who's awesome, but they need a wide receiver too, bad in my opinion.
I'm a little torn about the whole running back controversy going on in Buffalo, just because I really don't like the way that they use their running backs. I don't like how scripted some of their run plays were. I am led to think that if they were able to land a Travis Etienne or a Najee or a Javonte Williams, I think it's an instant upgrade at that position. But does the coaching staff really believe in Singletary-Moss combo going forward?
I think so. So this has been my take for a while, and I will stand by this. I don't think the Bills are ever going to be like a fantasy darling for running backs, right? So like the fantasy crowd out there is not going to like this running back room, and that's just going to be what it is. Yeah, for good reason. I mean, they're going to be used interchangeably a little bit. They're going to have that Patriots mindset of, they don't care about the stats at the end of the day. They just care about positive yards. And the other part of it is I do think their run game scheme, as you mentioned, I'll go a step farther and say I think it's bland. I think they need to add a lot more to it. I think that was a big issue for them at the end of the day. And also, I mean, the guard position we have under draft needs on the thing. I didn't put running back in there because I think it's more important to help out the O-line a little bit. Exactly. And I'm not saying their O-line is terrible, but they need help at the guard position to shore that up and help, especially in the run game. But at the end of the day, what are the Bills going to be doing the next couple of years? They're going to be utilizing Josh Allen's ability to throw the football. You know what I mean?
And his payday is coming.
Oh, it's coming. Yeah.
I think he's going to get up there.
He is. He definitely is. And you mentioned grabbing a wide receiver. I just want to point this out. If you're a Juju Smith-Schuster, if you're a Golladay, if you're a wide receiver on the market right now, and you feel like you deserve a payday, I mentioned the top 2, but there's definitely other names out there, and you feel like you deserve a payday and the offers are not coming, go to the Bills for a year. Go sign a team-friendly deal. Bet on yourself with the Bills. The Bills will happily take you, and you will be in a perfect situation because I'm sorry, nobody in the open market is better than Diggs right in the NFL. Like, no, I'm sorry, Galladay's really good. He's not better than Diggs. Juju Smith-Schuster, I'm not super high on, but he's a fine number 2, nowhere close to the level of a Stephon Diggs. Both those guys could go into the Bills. They would be the slam dunk wide receiver 2 on the team, in my opinion, and they would have a hell of a statistical year. I mean, they really would. That's the move. I think. I think that's
especially in a year where the market has seen so much turmoil, going down. Like you said, take your money where you can. Get for one of those Galladay, Juju, Marvin Jones-ish kind of guys, low tier ones. Take a $12 million deal. I know you're looking to really hit it off with Marvin Jones.
He went to the Jags, but I got you.
The tier 1 guy. Instead of getting that $15, $16, $17 million, you might have to take a 10, 11, 12.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Hey, and that's okay. Especially like the cap is going to jump up next year. I bet it will. I bet you the cap jumps $20 million next year. It would not surprise me a bit if that's what happens. And it's going to be perfect for a team like the Bills that's going to have to pay Josh Allen. They can give Josh Allen just a huge payday and structure it out in a way where, like, I don't know. We'll see what happens. That's getting too far in the future. Anywhere else you want to go with the Bills? All right, and we are going to move on to the New York Jets, who have not made as many moves as I was expecting. Kind of an interesting situation with the Jets. They need help in a lot of places. They definitely have some additions. They have a Jared Davis, who I love. Jared Davis from the Lions was the 19th pick.
I say Gerard.
Is it Gerard?
I say Gerard. People are different. It's okay.
Okay.
I'm not going to bust your balls on that.
Yeah, no, okay. Gerard Davis. Gerard Davis. Sorry. We're going to keep that in. That's fine. Gerard Davis, linebacker from the Lions, has dealt with a ton of injury issues, but I think he's a great player. I loved him coming out of Miami. When he is on the field, he pops, but injuries have just destroyed his career so far. So signs kind of a team-friendly deal with the Jets, and I mean, we'll see what happens. I think that could be a big signing. That could be one of the signings that people look at as like, oh man, that was a big addition. Corey Davis coming from the Titans, getting a payday. I think Corey Davis was like tier 2 of the wide receiver class. I think I don't know. Was Corey Davis better than Juju in your opinion? Like
no, he's not.
They're different guys. They're different.
Juju, I value Juju more than that. Corey Davis has a lot of potential going forward, but this past year with the Titans was really the first year that we actually saw it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Kind of hit, and that's being the number 2 with the AJ Brown being at the 1.
Yeah.
Now the Jets, for me, getting a Carl Lawson, I think is really important to help at that defensive line. You have Quinnen Williams, who really came on strong last year. Carl Lawson doing good. You have a C.J. Mosley returning. Marcus May is coming back too. Add that with Gerard Davis helping out that linebacker core. Listen, I like a lot of these moves. They still have the money to flirt around, though, and really land that one. Because they have Jameson Crowder at receiver 2. So Jameson Crowder, Corey Davis, let's see a Galladay.
Really? So you're saying go grab another one?
I want a Galladay, and I want Zach Wilson at number 2. And I really think that you could start to... Listen, Mekhi Becton is a hit at tackle.
Yeah, they crushed it.
You have the tackle checked. You would have an up-and-coming defensive line. You have a solid linebacker core. You desperately need help at defensive back.
Yeah.
Primarily your cornerback position because Marcus May is a good safety. So, yes, there's still areas you can shore up, but there is some hope.
That is you talk about just a core of a team, and there's a reason it says dealer's choice under draft needs. There's a lot of help that they can use. But I mean, you talk about a Corey Davis, a Jamison Crowder, and a Galladay at wide receiver with Zach Wilson, who I think is going to be an absolute stud coming in to throw the football. I mean, they're going to be a fun football team to watch, and that defense may not be complete, but you got some good pieces.
No, they really do. Listen, let's go back 6 months and look at the Jets' future and how just abysmal and sad it was. I think that they have done well with what they have. Robert Saleh is a guy who is known for building a locker room and chemistry too, so I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt with that and these moves and hoping that they gel together. So why not?
Yeah, look, I absolutely agree. I get it. I mean, is there anywhere else you want to go with that?
What do you want to see him do in the first round? Because we're gonna assume Zach Wilson, we both agree, should go number 2 for the Jets. They have 2 first-round picks. What should they do with the second one?
So I think defensive line would be the move. And look, that's a spot where I think you could get a Jalen Phillips, and that's the other Miami defensive. There's 3 Miami defensive ends that are probably gonna get drafted. You got Gregory Rousseau is the big name. You got Quincy Roche who played on the other side this year. But you go watch Miami's film from this year, number 15, where the same number as Gregory Rousseau. When I was going back and watching the film of these guys, that messed me me up big time because I was like, man, am I watching the wrong guy with Gregory Rousseau? But no, Jalen Phillips, I think, is the better player. He was like the number one pick or the number one player out of high school, had a ton of injuries, had to retire from the game, came back and was just an absolute dominant threat. Injuries are going to be a concern. That's going to push him down the board, I think, a good bit. He might be a second round pick. I haven't heard a lot of people talking about him, and I'm calling my shot though. I think he deserves to be a first round pick, and I could see the Jets targeting a guy like that. Maybe it is Rousseau because Rousseau has all of the physical tools. It's just putting it together. Like he's still, I think, a raw prospect, and I think that he could still be in that range as well. But man, I like defensive line. I would want to shore up the defense, especially if they grab another wide receiver in free agency. If not, there's going to be some wide receivers there as well that you could grab as well in that range.
Of course, I get that. I'm led to go with the cornerback position.
Okay.
And there is one guy that stands out in particular because I'm assuming Farley and Surtain would be gone by this time.
Yeah.
The next man up, and I think he's in the same caliber, but is not being brought up enough, is J.C. Horn. I think J.C. Horn is a fast, physical lockdown corner that they could really use where they don't have a one that stepped up yet. I think he is worthy of a shot at that.
That's a good name, and that's probably even a more of a positional need. So I like that a whole lot. That's a really good point. Yeah, look, the Jets, I mean, they're going to have a bounce back year, man. It's going to be fun. I think the Jets they could win 7 games this year. They really could, and especially if Zach Wilson's as good as I think he's going to be. I think there's a lot of teams
that are making that next step, though. The NFL it's kind of hard to spot that really ugly team right now.
That churning, it always happens, man.
Who's the ugliest team? Just a 30-second quick.
Lions are going to be picking number 1 overall, I think.
There we go.
The Lions, or I could see it falling apart for the Bears, maybe. I mean, I could see that happening. But yeah, let's move on with the NFC East. The last team, my team, Miami Dolphins. I like what they've done. It's been a kind of a quiet, season, free agency season. Like, there are no big names. But you look, they get their backup quarterback in Jacoby Brissett. I do think this solidifies that they are probably out on Deshaun Watson. We mentioned at the top of the show with everything going on with Deshaun Watson, I don't think he's getting traded anyway. Yeah. So I think that's kind of over. I don't think there's nobody at 3, assuming Zach Wilson is gone at 2. There's nobody at 3 that is like, to me, an instant upgrade over a guy in Tua who is still developing. So you're probably going to run in another year with Tua. Jacoby Brissett is a very, very good, backup quarterback. He's not a starter, but he's a fine backup quarterback. I don't mind that. You look at Adam Butler, defensive tackle, to replace Devon Gottschall, who went over to the Patriots. Good pick. Will Fuller at wide receiver, going to get a good 3 or 4 games out of him. That'll be nice. What was your reaction to this free agency class? I don't hate him. He's always.
I think Will Fuller was one of those guys that could be up there in that Corey Davis type of mentality. It is the off the field issues with the substance thing and just flat out being injured and not being ready to play. Yeah. But I think you're going to rock the Tua thing. Mm-hmm. I see no problem with that. I think you have a very promising core going forward. Yes, if you can land Deshaun, go get Deshaun. I'm not looking at the off the field stuff. I'm talking strictly on the field. Mm-hmm. Go get Deshaun because I think it could propel you to the next step a lot sooner than what you were planning on. But I think a lot of people, in what small sample size we saw Tua, we saw Herbert explode. Mm-hmm. We saw the magic with Burrow and just kind of how he was able to command a team. He wasn't putting up monstrous numbers, but it was just what he was able to do on the field with what he had was promising. Tua was more of a sour taste in your mouth. You wanted to see more. You wanted to see the tight window throws, push the ball down the field, blah, blah, blah. I think we need to give him his due process, though.
Yeah, he deserves another year. He absolutely does.
I've seen people already throwing in the towel on him completely. Yeah. Justin Fields or Tua, you got to rock Tua.
Yeah. And look, I've been guilty of it, and I totally understand. I think I got into the hype a little bit of, we're going to go get a quarterback. We're going to get Deshaun Watson. I fell into that mindset, and I think I've said some things on here that I would probably take back if I had the chance. But it is what it is. I've been negative towards Tua, but at the end of the day, look, he's a young guy. He has a ton of talent. We know that, and throwing in the towel on him right now, it's not fair to him. I mean, we all want this, every single quarterback to come in and be great week 1. And it doesn't happen. It happened really, really fast with Joe Burrow and obviously Herbert. They looked great from day one. And I think the thing that puts a sour taste in my mouth, just as a Dolphins fan, is the fact that I don't see a way where Tua ever gets to be as good as either of those other quarterbacks. I just don't. I think Herbert has incredible. Like he could be an all-time great. Like he has that type of potential as far as like after year one. I believe, I'm not saying he's going to be that. Don't hear what I'm not saying. He has that potential. Joe Burrow looked awesome until he got hurt, right? And then Tua, like I don't know. I think we can get a solid, good starting quarterback out of him.
We have seen the flash, and then some with the other two names mentioned. Tua, we are still waiting to be like,
and that's the
okay. Like, I see where it's going. You know. We'll going forward, I think you're in a promising direction.
Exactly. So that's a good point. Losses, the defense just in general. Look, obviously we traded a Shaq Lawson for a bit, Bernard McKinney. Excuse me, I struggle with that first name there. So we basically traded an inside linebacker for our offensive linebacker DN type of guy with Shaq Lawson, who plays with the hand in his dirt. And Shaq Lawson was actually played pretty well, and people are going to look at his stats and say he didn't. He played less than 50% of snaps, and he was just, you know, it wasn't like he wasn't healthy. It was just we had a good rotation of DNs, and he was just a part of that rotation. We were paying him a little bit too much to just be a rotational guy. We got a lot of work out of some other dudes that are probably cheaper, so move on from him, get him McKinney. We just upgraded to a position that we had more need in, and I think that was a good move for the Dolphins. All we did was move back draft picks to swap those players too, so it worked out really good. Kyle Van Noy, we were just paying too much money for another guy who played well, but he was kind of a cap casualty.
When cap goes down, you got to make tough calls.
Exactly, and it worked out for the Patriots really well. I think at the end of the day, draft needs is where we got to look at this. Offensive line still in need, but I mean they played 3 starters last year, and they all showed promise. Like they all stood their own against some good NFL talent. So I'm not saying it was perfect, but it was good enough for me to think it's going to go in the right direction. I'm not even going to pick a position. I think center is a need, but guard is kind of a need. And if they wanted to, you know, push one of our tackles inside and draft a different tackle, I wouldn't have a problem with that. If we get Penei Sewell at 3, and we push
one of a home run hit.
Yeah, be a home run hit, and we can push one of the tackles that we have in there. I'm blanking. I think Hunt would be the guy we would just move to guard. It'd be fine. Like it'd be totally fine. You know. So I just said O-line in general. Wide receiver, we need help. I think in the first 2 rounds, we have 4 picks in the first 2 rounds. So grab a wide receiver with one of those picks. I personally hope we trade down. And as a Dolphins fan, I'm going to say this. I hope we trade down from 3 to either number 8 with Carolina, who's going to want to trade up and get a quarterback, or I think the Bears are in need of quarterback mode. They can't go into the season with Dalton as your number 1. I can't imagine.
They've said they have. We'll get to that.
I don't believe them, and I'd love to hear your take. I think the second they signed Dalton, they admitted to the NFL world they have to go trade up, and I'll bet they're calling the Dolphins, seeing how much is it going to cost. 3 firsts, run it.
3 firsts, that is a monumental price. Listen, yes, if you get offered that deal, you take that in a heartbeat. I think your first pick is going to be an offensive position. I think Penei Sewell. I'm looking at a Jamar Chase. I would look, like you said, to trade down with the Panthers at 8. Perhaps someone else in the 7 to 10 range is where I think you can still land, because it doesn't matter to me. Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, Jamar Chase. I think they're all wide receiver 1s. I like some more than others. I'm not going to sit here and say that. But at the number 3 spot, that is such a rare wide receiver hit.
Yeah.
It better hit, you know, and I don't think you were hurting desperately enough to have to do that at number 3 versus dropping down a little bit. Maybe you don't get your favorite in Jamar Chase for me personally.
Yeah.
Maybe I settle and get a Jalen Waddle. Totally okay with that, and I bring some other assets to the table.
Yeah.
That's what I want to do.
For me, it's Chase and Waddle at 1 and 2, with Chase at a good bit ahead of Waddle, and then Smith is certainly my 3rd wide receiver in the board, but I do think there's a drop off a little bit.
And you could do the same thing with the tackle at Penei Sewell.
Yeah.
Penei Sewell for me is leaps and bounds above everyone else, but when you ask a lot of analysts, Slater,
Northwestern
Rashawn
tackle,
Slater is really close. They say
he shut down Jamar Chase, or not Jamar Chase, Chase Young. You got the Chases.
Yeah,
so I mean, he shut him down.
If there's a way that you're able to trade down and still pick up one of those 2 guys, they're saying that both of them have that star power on them. Go for it.
Yeah. Hey, and then
after that, I would say bolster up your linebacker core a lot.
Yeah, and that's why I said, and I know 3 firsts sounds crazy. That's why I said 3 firsts to get to 3 from 15, because from the drop off from 8 to 15, which I do think both of those offers are going to be on the table. I think the Dolphins could make both of those trades if they wanted to, because one of those teams is going to want to move up to get a quarterback. Yes. But if you move down to 8, we can still get. We have an opportunity to get one of those 4 guys that we mentioned, right? I'm not saying all of them are going to be there, but one of them will definitely be there, right? You drop down to 15, you're not getting any of those guys. Yeah, you gotta pay for that. I mean, that's a big cost. So I'm saying it would cost another first round pick for me to give up on one of those 4 guys. Or all of those 4 guys.
I get that.
You see what I'm saying? So
especially
that's
when you
my
look
logic.
at some of the defensive talent and upper echelon offenses, it drops.
And I look at the Bears as a team that are that are in we want to save our jobs mode, and I think they would be willing to make a bad move, a bad like analytical move. Like I wouldn't agree to move 3 first for anybody that's getting drafted 3rd in this draft class.
I get that.
If you could get number 2, go get Zach Wilson. I think he's worth it. But anybody at 3, you're making a big swing. You better hope it hits. I mean, shit. But it probably saves your job for another year, and that's probably why they would do it, I would think. So yeah, that's my take. You want anything else on this?
Wrap it up.
All right, that is our AFC East. If you are watching just this video, please check out the rest of the podcast. We broke down every single division. If you're on the podcast, we are moving right along to the AFC South. All right, and let's move on to the AFC South. We got to start with the Jaguars, right? Big team,
they're heavy.
Ton of money. They have spent some money. I have some mixed feelings about this. I would love to hear your thoughts. Just a basic rundown. We're looking at the graphic right now. What do you see here that pops out to you?
I think Malcolm Brown is a solid move. I think they get a starter in that, in the defensive trenches. Shaq Griffin is a cornerback 1 technically that can fit alongside C.J. Henderson, who had a really promising rookie campaign going. Cam Robinson, franchise tag. I think he's a staple piece that you got to have at your offensive line. Carlos Hyde doesn't really do nothing for me. Rayshon Jenkins doesn't do anything for me. Rudy Ford is formidable in places that they play him because he's been there before. Yep. And Jamal Agnew, I actually like at the wide receiver spot. And you're landing Trevor Lawrence. So in my head, I'm putting him up there as well. Yeah. I don't think they lost a lot. These aren't the flashy moves that you want to see whenever you're a top 3 team in the cap. Yeah. But they had mini moves.
And then look, you look at draft needs. It's dealer's choice for a reason, right? They need a lot of help in a lot of places. Looks like, I mean, I always talk about how you look at the free agency moves, especially like some of the not big moves, and that tells you what they're looking at, right? D tackle, the defensive line is clearly a big importance to the Jaguars franchise right now. They grabbed a bunch of guys, traded for a Malcolm Brown, went out and got some of these dudes, and Roy Robertson Harris. This is a guy who was hurt last year, but has some talent. I think he could come on and be like, he could start for this team next year, and he got a very good deal. The thing that kills me is Shaq Griffin getting top cornerback money in this concept. He got big boy money, and we don't have the list right here. It doesn't matter. The money is so messed up. I used to care so much about how much these guys got paid and everything, and it's like the contracts get changed so quickly, and it's like it doesn't really matter until it matters. You know what I mean? But I look at this particular signing, and I'm like, if you were going to spend that much money, why wouldn't you go get William Jackson? William Jackson is better than Griffin. I'm sorry, it's not a question. And maybe people will shout out in the comments and let me know if you disagree. That's fine. Maybe I'm wrong on this, but I would be surprised if in a year every Jaguars fan isn't saying, man, we paid Griffin more than William Jackson got paid, and William Jackson is doing a whole hell of a lot better. I look at Griffin as a scheme fit in their Seahawks scheme, and it works for him. He was fine, but he was a cornerback 2 playing cornerback 1 on the Seahawks and struggling. Like, fans of the Seahawks don't like Griffin. They're not missing him at all. And now he's getting cornerback 1 money to go to the Jaguars. I have an issue with that signing.
I get it. I do think they addressed a need, and they're definitely evaluating their talent as they do in their own place. And I don't think that he's going to be asked to be the true number 1. I think C.J. Henderson stepped up a lot last year and was really able in a hard division too. I think he was able to do formidable. Shaq Griffin, if he's a 2, does that do it for you?
But why pay him like a 1? I get, like, even if he's not going to be the 1 on the team, why pay him?
I get that, but so theoretically, William Jackson is just not interested from the get-go. That's what I'm saying in my head, because I value him better than Shaq Griffin as well. So maybe they just had that door closed on him. If you miss out on Shaq Griffin, what do you do? You still you have a major need.
That's a good point.
I think if you have the money to spend and you have to do it, I think now you're able to look, because we have our draft needs as a dealer's choice, because Jacksonville has so many different needs across the board. I think, yes, they will still need cornerback, of course, but you can address some of those earlier needs elsewhere and maybe get some true playmakers early on.
Bro, see, this is why I love doing the pod with you. You defend things so well when I overreact to shit like that. You're absolutely right. That's a good way to put it.
He's a good starter. Yeah. It is a depth move. You overpaid, though.
Okay. They definitely did. I think that's a perfect way to say it. I liked the Marvin Jones move. was surprised he got as much as he got, but Marvin Jones is a good wide receiver too, and being the complement to a DJ Shark at a wide receiver one, I have no problem with that at all. Gives Trevor Lawrence some weapons. Again, it's dealer's choice for a reason. There's going to be some issues. This team isn't going to be great next year, but I mean, hopefully going in the right direction. Hopefully you got some. My big thing with this is like, who is the foundational piece you got in free agency? Is it Malcolm Brown? Is it Cam Robinson franchise tag? So you can't say that's your foundational piece.
I get what you're saying.
You know what I mean?
You have that. You're 1, 2, and 3 in the cap.
Yeah.
Those teams are supposed to be like, hey, we got so and so. We got this dude. We got a top 5 dog in this free agency class. You didn't. You got a lot of guys that fit into that, 15 to 30 range, I think.
I think they plugged some holes for next year, but I can see a lot of these guys being cut next year. You know what I mean? So that's why I'm a little bit low on it, and I'm sorry, Jaguars fans. I'm not trying to shit on your team. I'm very excited for the Jaguars this year. I think they already had a good bit of young talent that wasn't utilized in the last regime, and I think it can be with, a Trevor Lawrence coming in and, to shore that up. I'm excited about that aspect of it. And really, I mean, look, you lost Josh Oliver, nothing. Chris Thompson's being replaced by Carlos Hyde. I mean, okay, nothing, no news there. Chris Connolly, they also lost D.D. Westbrook, which I didn't put on there because he was hurt most last year anyway. So you're not losing a lot of pieces. You're adding some talent. Where would you go with their second first-round pick in this draft?
That's what I was about to ask you. So Trevor Lawrence is an instant. Who's second do they have again?
They got the Rams.
They have the Rams. So, Rams did make the playoffs, so they're probably at like
22, 23. I'm somewhere in that ballpark. Yeah.
Man, that is so tough. I would say offensive line based for Trevor.
Yeah, I like.
There's some. There's not
elite
talent early on at the guard. I'm looking primarily interior offensive line, the guard center position, but it is deep there. You can find a starter in those rounds, and I think it's important.
It's a good year to need offensive line, and I mean, you don't always say that either.
Taylor on the outside at tackle, who I think is maybe going to find his roots and hopefully get going. And you have a franchise tag, Cam Robinson, so you're set tentatively there. Go help out that interior, because we saw what happened with Joe Burrow, and teams need to understand when you invest in a guy that is that highly touted. Trevor Lawrence is 5 times the Burrow hype that we have going into this. Take care of the man.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And look, you talk about a rebuild, go defensive line, go offensive line first year. Just load up on the interior, because that's the way you want it. That's the way every good rebuild starts. I mean, you don't start from the skill positions and work in. You start from the trenches and work out. I mean, because I mean, there's not a lot of bad teams with a good offensive line. That's my favorite quote. So I absolutely agree with you. Go shore up offensive line with. I mean, shit, you could use your next 3 picks on offensive line, and I wouldn't even complain about it. I really wouldn't. I'm sure a lot of Rams or Jags fans would, but that's okay. We're gonna move on to the Colts. Let's do Colts next here, and not a lot of movement here. I mean, we're probably not gonna spend a whole lot of time on the Colts. We've known about the Carson Wentz thing for a while, and that's like have this graphic up right now. That was their big addition. I mean, honestly, and I know it wasn't free agent, but that's the big addition coming into the 2021 season. Anything you want to say about this?
Costanzo retired. Did he not?
Yes, he did.
It was a surprising retire. You have Braden Smith, who you could bump out to that left side. He's played phenomenally at right tackle, though, so I don't know what you want to do there. They need to address that early. The Colts are now, since all these other moves have happened, because they've been so quiet in free agency, they're a top 5 cap team. They're a very good roster to be a top 5 cap team, and we haven't seen the moves yet. They made some pushes for some defensive linemen early on. They kind of hit, swing and a miss on a few of those guys. So quiet overall. Still a good roster. I don't think they're done yet. Yeah,
and I absolutely agree. And look, we're recording this as of Thursday night. If something changes in before this video comes out, up to the last second, I'll edit this graphic, and maybe it says something on your screen that we're not talking about. It's because we edited it after recording this video. So just put that out there. Let's move over to draft needs. I do think they got to replace Anthony Costanzo. This is a good point of them moving what's his name to tackle. I like that idea. I still think this team runs through the tackle position, or runs through the offensive line in general. So the tackle position is going to have to be attacked. And hey, we just mentioned it. Great year to need a tackle. I mean, so I like that. Where else would you go in the draft?
Yeah, I am led to believe that they're going to have to target the wide receiver position, just depending on what happens with T.Y. Hilton. So T.Y. is a stud still to me in my eyes. Okay.
See, we disagree on that. I'll put that there.
Okay, stud, too broad of a term. Kenny Golladay would be an instant upgrade from a T.Y. Hilton. I don't want to put him on that.
I think Juju would be an upgrade too, and I'm not huge on Juju either.
Okay, wow. I don't think Phillip Rivers brought the most out of what a T.Y. Hilton could do. So I think he's going to be slept on in this regard. I still would like to have a T.Y. Hilton on the team. Zach Pascal was given the role last year. We saw a lot of wide receivers that were supposed to step up and just weren't able to step up. Not to mention Michael Pittman Jr. I think he might be the one to actually really solidify himself in that role. Yeah. Yes, so you got to address wide receiver and possibly cornerback.
Yeah, and you mentioned Paris Campbell is another one. He got hurt early on in the year. I still believe in him, so I think he's going to come back. Look, I don't. You always make fun of me the second a guy turns 30. I write him off. You make fun of me all the time, and maybe that's what I'm doing with the T.Y. Hilton here. But I feel like we've seen the decline. I think there's a reason we're not hearing a whole lot on him in the free agent market. We got Marlon Mack coming back, so it would make sense. Like, okay, they brought back Marlon Mack for a pretty team-friendly deal. They could bring back T.Y. Hilton too, and I wouldn't sit here and say I hate it. I do think they still need an upgrade. Good year. I mean, honestly, all their needs, it's a good year to need all of those. Maybe not corner. Corner kind of falls off after the top 3, in my opinion. But other than that, they could be a sneaky playoff team. A sneaky, very good playoff team.
I don't even think it's sneaky. I think if we're able to see a revitalized and maybe rejuvenated Carson Wentz, he could propel them. Yeah. They made the playoffs last year, and they were some bogus calls away, because they had some bogus calls going in their favor. It shouldn't have been that close with Buffalo. Gotcha. But technically some bogus calls away from advancing to the next round of the playoffs. And from there, who knows?
I was wondering which way you're going with that with bogus calls. I got you.
Buffalo was getting hosed that game.
They did.
It shouldn't have been as close as what it was.
We watched that together. I completely agree.
Technically a few calls away from somehow pulling out a dub in the playoffs. What's the next step?
Yeah. And listen, I mean, they did the best they could with a Phillip Rivers who was on his last leg. Man, I still believe in the talent of a Carson Wentz. I think, a scenery change could do wonders for him. We'll see what happens. I think I'm getting into the point where, it might just be a character issue with Carson Wentz, and that seems to be something that we've heard a lot about. People don't like him as a person. So maybe that's an issue. We'll see what happens. I'm excited to see what happens with the Colts. Let's move on here. Let's move on to the Tennessee Titans. And Tennessee Titans fans are not going to like this graphic at all. I am so sorry, guys. I mean, not a lot of additions. You got the big name in Bud Dupree. A lot of guys not on that team anymore. It's an unfortunate one.
I'm going to light into them.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, because I think that they were in a spot in a division that still has some teams falling down with the fall of Deshaun Watson and the Texans. We have yet to see the up-and-coming Jaguars yet, and you have a Colts team that's transitioning to a quarterback. Yes, I just talked up and gassed up Carson Wentz. There is a good chance that it may not happen. So Titans fans, for once in a long time, you are the one constant in that division that could take it and run with it, because we see so many different winners pop in and out. Colts one year, Texans one year, Titans the next, back and forth, all these 9-7, 8-8 bad years. Go out there, re-sign your guys, keep the band together, and just run Derrick Henry 2K to the ground and take it to the playoffs. Your defense got horrible. It was bad last year. It was bad last year. Yes, you signed Bud Dupree. I'm really high on Bud Dupree. I think it is really good.
I am too.
But $16 million, I believe.
It's a lot. Yeah.
It is a lot.
For a guy who got hurt in week 12, he is not going to be a contributor until midseason next year. Even if he's on the field, he is not going to be the same guy. He's going to need a little bit of time,
guys. It's the secondary, man.
Yeah.
It's the secondary.
I mean,
you lose Adoree Jackson, you lose Malcolm Butler, you lose Kenny Vaccaro. Kenny Vaccaro, I felt like, was a great system safety for what he was able to do for the Titans, too. It's sad to see that they couldn't bring him back for a hometown discount kind of deal. I understand why you cut Malcolm Butler. It's strictly saving dollars. I didn't have a problem with that. Adoree Jackson, though, was a guy, yes,
that was a dollar saver too. I mean,
I understand the dollar saving things, but you're pissed off by some of the ways that he plays. He didn't amount to that 18th overall pick like you did, Titans. We can admit that, but you have to address a need and understand that you still have a need at that position. What are they going to do?
The issue for me is what are you adding? I don't.
They're not.
So it's like I don't.
In a year where the division's up in the air, not up in the yours to take because it's already yours. So run with it.
Yeah. So
you lose Giannou, you lose your Corey Davis, you lose Adam Humphries as well. So who's your number 2?
I don't know. Exactly. I don't know who the number 2 is. And look, Jonnu Smith at tight end, they got some use out of Ferkshire, who they did bring back. Maybe the tight end position is going to be okay.
Delaney Walker's returning.
And I'm not gonna sit here and hate him for moving on from Jonnu. He got a big payday at tight end, who was good but not great for the Titans. Okay, whatever. But you lose all of these contributors on your defense, and you bring in one guy on the defensive line to make up for all of it. I'm sorry, I didn't come into the season saying like the defensive end is on draft needs, and I think it's a need for the Titans. I didn't think it was the biggest need. It certainly wasn't a bigger need than what cornerback is now. I don't get it. You move on from a Dennis Kelly who he has some injury concerns. He has like a serious medical issue that I heard him talking about on our podcast once. That maybe there was some issue there. Maybe that had something to do with the cut. But you already totally whiffed on an Isaiah Wilson on your first round pick last year, which I'm not going to sit here and blame the Titans. They took a shot on the guy they believed could be a stud tackle, and off the field issues really brought him to. They had to trade him to the Dolphins. So it is what it is. There,
you see that work. I mean, look at the Titans with Jeffrey Simmons. You did the same exact thing,
and it worked out.
Home run.
So like, I'm not shitting on him for that. They've drafted fairly well overall. The 2017 draft isn't looking very good anymore, but overall they've drafted fairly well. But you just lost so many guys. You created so many needs that you need to fill up with in the draft. And it's not like they have a ton of draft capital. They have the picks they're supposed to have, but I mean, I don't get this. I don't understand the thought process.
And then going back to like what they have on the secondary that's left right now, Christian Fulton was a healthy scratch a lot of the games last year. I don't know whether that was just because you liked your depth or what you thought he was going to do in there, but he's going to have to step up in a big way. Big time. Then whoever they draft this year is going to be an instant step up and play kind of guy because you have no other choice right now.
Yeah. And I'm going to play devil's advocate for a second for Titans fans.
Okay.
We don't know what the practices look like. Maybe Fulton is the dude and they believe in him and they're like, we're not going to pay Malcolm Butler and Adoree Jackson to do what we know Christian Fulton can do better. Maybe that's what they're thinking. Maybe they like their depth at the tackle position. We don't know what these tackles look like. Like we don't know what their backup guard is looking like right now. We don't know. So maybe they feel confident in that. They don't even feel like they have to address Dennis Kelly. Maybe they feel like they're getting younger and better at that position. I don't know. I can't honestly tell you who their fourth wide receiver is or their fifth wide receiver is, and I should know that. We're talking about the Titans right now, so I'm sorry for my ignorance to Titans fans who probably know that are watching this. But maybe you believe in those guys. I don't know. To me, it looks like you made a lot of holes for yourself, but the Titans might have a plan. We have trusted this organization, and they've brought them in the right direction so far. I hope that they know what they're. I think they know what they're doing. I hope that their plan works out the way they want it to. I'll put it that way.
This isn't going to sink the ship. The Tennessee Titans are still a playoff caliber team. I was just prepped for them to really revamp this thing.
Yeah.
I looked at them in Buffalo, not in the way that they built their team the same, but in the same of they can make
a couple
the next
pieces
step.
away.
Yeah, going from divisional championship round to a legitimate, if they land the right moves, a legit Super Bowl champion. Yeah. They have that potential, and I think they made it harder on themselves by making
these moves. And I get that some of the cuts were to save money. Adam Humphries was an early cut because they knew he wasn't worth it. Vinny Vaccaro got a good payday, but safety is an easy position to replace, so I get it. And I love Vinny Vaccaro or Kenny Vaccaro. I'm not trying to shit on him at all, but safety in general in the NFL is a fairly easy position to replace. It just is. So I don't know, man. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful this doesn't sink the ship. To me, the AFC and conference in general has been so competitive. I mean, the Jaguars got a lot better. The Colts got a lot better. You're not gonna have to worry about the Texans. You're good there. So can you win their division? Maybe.
I think they can. I just wanted to see them.
If they can't, I mean, are you gonna be competing with the Dolphins, like the likes of the Dolphins who should be taking another step this year? Are you gonna be competing with the Patriots? And I'm going like a tier down, like on purpose, right? I'm asking like, are you gonna be competing with the Browns and the Steelers? Like I don't know where they're gonna be compared to all the rest of the teams. Are they gonna be able to make the playoffs next year? I don't know. I think it's a question mark. And I hate feeling that way at this point in the season for a team that, I mean, I love the way they play football. I like watching the Titans every week. They're a fun team to watch.
I think they're in.
Yeah, you think they're in? Good. I'm glad somebody does. And again, I put all that out there. Anything else you want to say about the Titans? We see the draft needs. I think that you got to go cornerback if one of the top three are there. You could easily go tackle. It's a good year to need tackle, as we've said a bunch of times, and it's a good year to need wide receiver. That is another light at the end of the tunnel. You can get a wide receiver 2 in the second round, and he can produce your week 1 or year 1. So hopefully they're able to do that and replace some of these weapons that you lost. And I think that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
All right, we'll move on to the last team we got to talk about in this division, the Texans. Man,
it's got to be a dealer's
tough,
choice, right?
Tough to be a Texan.
I haven't seen your graphic yet. It's a dealer's choice.
Yeah, we put the graphic up right now. I'll let you run with it. What are you thinking with the Texans?
Yeah, you haven't hit the floor yet. You will start to see the bottom after you figure out what you want to do with Deshaun. So if you're able to salvage that from all the news coming out is that Deshaun definitely wants out no matter what, and there's no way around that.
He's never playing again for the Texans.
And if that's the case, you need to get your assets while you can, and you need to start seeing the path that you want to take.
I don't think they can trade him right now. With all the stuff going on, I don't think they can trade him.
Well, because, you're getting pennies to the dollar at that rate.
Yeah, they would get
team acquiring him.
They could have gotten 3 first round. They could have gotten a haul last week, and this week, I don't know what they could get for him right now. I don't know if the Dolphins would realistically trade the 3rd pick overall for a guy they don't know if he's going to be convicted of sexual harassment in a couple of years.
And if something like that happens, it's damning to your career.
It's putting a smirk on the organization. Exactly. So it's like I don't know if the Dolphins would be willing to make that trade right this second, and I don't know what the Texans could get for him. And this is all speculation. Maybe I don't know. So yeah, it's not looking good for the Texans.
They lost a lot of good cap hits though. They were able to JJ Watt. It was time. It was just time for that marriage. It was a good run while it lasted, but you have no need for him either right now. So let him move on. Duke Johnson was getting way overpaid at running back position. Good to see him go. McKinney was another guy getting overpaid, and you were able to kind of ship him out and bring it in. Marcus Cannon, I think, is an underrated move for them. I think he is a good tackle. I think you're able to play him and Laramie Tunsil. And, it's so hard to spin this thing in a positive manner because there's so many different ways that you got to go. But you at least, going forward, have picks.
Yeah. I'm
not this year. Deshaun.
Not this year.
I'm just assuming you're able to get Deshaun for a good
I get it. So I can spin it. I can say, look, the Deshaun Watson issue is the big thing. And it's like, man, what are you going to do at the quarterback position now? Is Tyrod Taylor your starter? I will say this. You were able to trade for a Shaq Lawson, and you were able to send out, but I think that trade worked for both teams, right? It worked for the Dolphins, and it worked for the Texans. Shaq Lawson was a need, like the defensive end was a need. They replaced that good. Terrence Mitchell, you got a good cornerback 2 at a good price. Solid. You got Malik Collins, a good D tackle. I'm not saying he's an all-star, but you
need starters right now.
Yeah, and they got starters. Marcus Cannon was a very good trade, and honestly, the Texans are going to have to make more trades, especially like player-for-player trades, because they don't have a lot of assets, and you don't want to give up draft picks. But that's the best way you can get players to come into your organization. Trade for them because they don't have a choice. It is what it is, but I mean that's you're not getting the top end free agents, because I guarantee you any free agent that's offered equal deals from one team to another, you're not going to the Texans train right now. Well, if you're a free agent making your decision,
they don't have a pick to the 3rd round.
Yeah, Tyrod Taylor went because he thinks he's going to be a starter, and he probably will be because I don't know what's going to happen with Deshaun Watson. You got Mark Ingram, who I get it. You understand why he was let go by the Ravens, but I think he's an upgrade over Duke Johnson. I really do. And he's cheaper. So I like, in a vacuum, I actually like a lot of the moves they've made. I just am not excited about the Texans in general because of
they haven't hit the floor yet.
Yeah, honestly. And Nick Martin's a huge hit, and I don't know how they're going to replace that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially when you're looking at one of the only things that you do have that is mildly enticing is a well-built line. And in a way, I don't think it's complete ass. Yep. In some ways that it is. Laramie Tunsil was one of the best promising tackles out there. Nick Martin was an absolute hit. And then add in a Marcus Cannon if they could have held on to Nick Martin. I mean, you have 3 out of 5 solid.
Yeah, well, and you have a pass organization that was doing everything they could to shore up the offensive line to make a push. Now
they're not at hit.
Now you're coming into it and it's like, okay, your offensive line has some promising pieces. The rest of your team just sucks. So I mean, it is what it is. Guys,
first round pick next year.
Yeah, first round pick next year, guys.
Oh, first overall pick. Sorry.
First overall pick. Oh, yeah. I was just saying, hey, they have a first-round pick next year.
That's true, too. Sorry, Texans fans.
Hey, look, we never know what that first-round pick could be. I mean, that's assets. Even if you get to keep Deshaun Watson, or if you can talk him into coming back, that could be multiple picks in the future. And if not, hey, you could have a quarterback of the future. And if you are a Texans fan right now, at least take solace in the fact that teams are never terrible for very long in the NFL. I mean, honestly, right? I mean, that's fair to say. Dolphins are on the come up. The Browns are on the come up. The Bills are on the come up. I mean, the Bills have already come up.
I know, but they were bad for so long. There were so many teams that have been historically bad. At the end of the day, the goal is Lombardies.
Yeah.
Historically bad teams have been historically bad.
Okay.
We haven't seen Cleveland. We haven't seen Cincinnati back in a while. Detroit's been struggling for years. Can't get off the ground.
I don't think they're in that situation, but they might be. Who knows? I don't know.
I mean,
you might be right.
Detroit is a sore thumb. They stand out on many different levels, but I'm just saying, overall, it just depends on what you consider success.
I'm trying to speak to the Texans fans of the world and tell them it's going to be okay.
They're not out there.
All right, we just lost. We're not going to have one subscriber from a Texans fan. Thanks a lot, bro.
Leave it in the comments, please. I'm sorry, and if you are a Texans fan, I want to shake your hand. I commend you for sticking through these bad moves.
If you're a Texans fan, comment on this video, and we will feature the comment, and we will apologize to you personally on the next podcast.
That's a deal. And I'll also double down and say, every Texans fan, if you were able to somehow prove to me that you were a Texans fan, not just spam, I will do a shot for every single one of you.
On the pod?
Texans Nation, come out. Make me pay for it.
Oh, hell yeah.
Make me pay for it.
Hell yeah. Come to the Between the Pylons podcast. Comment down below. Show that you're a fan. And we have a bunch of shots for good old Jacob Waters.
There's not more than 10, right?
We're going to find out.
I think they lost that with D-Hops.
All right. And starting with the AFC North in our fully loaded podcast / episodes of the week. Marathon episode of free agency. We are talking about the Pittsburgh Steelers. Put up the graphic. There it is. And all right. Yeah, it was not a lot in the additions column there with Cameron Sutton being a depth piece at best. I mean, that was all we had right now. And granted, more things can happen. They were in cap hell. There's a reason that the graphic is just a bunch of former Steelers that have X's next to it. Not a lot to say. I mean, you lose Bud Dupree, you lose Mike Hilton, you lose Marquise Pouncey, you lose Villanueva, all starters, by the way. Avery Williams, starter. Vince Williams, spot starter / starter. I mean, what do you do? What do you think here, man?
It's scary, man. Big Ben has said that he's going to make another run at it. But Big Ben, I don't know if you would want to, because you're going to have to be running with the way this offensive line is looking, and you can't do that.
Yeah,
you're too old for that. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
These are two very, very formidable starters that we've seen in the NFL in the Pouncey brothers and Villanueva. Mm-hmm. Losing Marquise, losing Villanueva. I don't know if you can, even if you draft well enough. That is a hard hit to find immediately. Yeah. And for Pittsburgh going forward, you really wanted to have a legitimate last run at it with Big Ben before you have to address that quarterback spot. I don't think... I'll go as far to say that I know it is not happening now. There's just too much... Too many things, not enough time to get this going.
Look, it was a very good run, and they had a run last year.
We're talking in past tense. It's game over.
Yeah, look, and I get it. Look,
it's game over.
So I will say this. Let's be optimistic here. We don't know what the depth of their offensive line looks like, right? I don't know what their backup center is. Right. I don't know what their back, and nobody does.
Okay.
We won't know. Like only the teams know.
Cop.
Look, I'm just saying. Like, there's a chance. I'm not. Look, how do you replace what could Marquise Pouncey could very well be a Hall of Famer. And I'm not saying he's first ballot, but it would not surprise me a bit if in 6-7 years we're talking about him as a Hall of Famer. You got Villanueva, who, I mean, you might be able to say the same thing. I don't feel strongly about that, but like, you're talking about all-star, all-pro players. I'm not saying it's going to be easy to replace, but the Pittsburgh Steelers are one of the best at evaluating talent and bringing in young guys. It happens every single year. Look, we have some linebackers that are going to be leaving. Devin Bush is going to be back and healthy next year. Devin Bush, the guy they traded up 10 spots to get him at 10 overall a couple years ago, and he is a stud, if you ask me. I love Devin Bush. So I think he's going to have to be a big piece. Mike Hilton, older corner who, I don't think he's necessarily replaced by Cameron Sutton, but I do think, again, I have hope for this team to be okay, especially their...
it just depends on what terms we're talking on. Pittsburgh Steelers, when I think of the Steelers, I think of always a perennial threat to be a very good team, successful, maybe small Super Bowl runs up in there. I mean, they've had a mini dynasty going as long as Big Ben's been up in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
I think it is over now. They could always hit the wild card.
Yeah,
I mean, there's a chance they could make it to the playoffs just because of the coaching.
You never know.
I think
their
Mike
coaching
Tomlin
is so good.
Yes, he is fantastic at finding players and putting players and bringing out their strengths in that. So you're not going to be essentially a lottery pick team, kind of 5-win thing. But
and a name that's not on the graphic that we showed a second ago, Juju Smith-Schuster has not signed yet, so he's not technically lost yet. but it's looking like he's probably going to be gone.
Doesn't
and honestly,
change a thing for me.
It doesn't for me either. And honestly, like we will edit this up until we post it, like very last second. So more news could come out, and he could be on that list by the time it comes out. It probably will be, to be totally honest. But either way, probably not coming back. And just like you said, is it really a big difference? You have a really good duo in Johnson and Claypool. I mean, you gotta like where you're at with the wide receiver position.
Exactly.
You gotta like where you're at with the tight end position. You gotta like where you're at with. I mean, you got Big Ben one more year, and Big Ben. I mean, he was throwing it around last year. I'm not saying he's the same guy, but I think you might have one more run, and you got him cheap. That's the big thing. I think
he has it in him, but with that offensive line hurting, that can change some things.
I mean, he's always been the guy that can stand in there and take the hit and keep on rolling. Can we get one more year out of them? It does feel like they've missed their window. It does feel like their window is closed a little bit. But, I mean, it could just be a reload next year, man. I mean, this is not the end of the world. They still have, I will put it this way, I still believe they have their foundational pieces at every level, right? You still have Watt on the defensive line. You still have, you have Bush at linebacker, and you still have, you have your wide receivers on the offensive side of the ball that maybe they're not foundational, but, I mean, Claypool, I think, is going to be a superstar. So, I don't know. I think that's fair to say, right?
You're right. They have a lot.
And they'll figure it out at, like, running back. Like, we have it in draft needs. They need running back. They're going to figure it out at running back. They're going to figure it out at linebacker. Like, I'm not super worried about both of those positions.
Maybe it's not as bad as what I said it was originally, but
I like how we're switching, because earlier you were the good guy, I was the bad guy. I love it. I'm not shitting on you. I'm trying I'm light at the end of the tunnel. Where can they come out?
Well, I agree with what you said. I don't want to
piss
off all the fans out there, because if you've been watching up to this point, I've had some pretty bad, coarse things to say about a few fan bases here. I'm just trying to be a realist here. I'm sorry, that's just the way it looks.
Yeah.
And you have to do the litmus test, man. Can you hold up against the Chiefs? That's where you're at.
No.
You're in the AFC.
No.
That's what it is.
You're absolutely right. No, they can't.
Having these losses, based off of what I saw last year, these losses make you get worse in some areas. Mm-hmm. You could barely hold the candle up to the Chiefs last year. You're not doing it this year. I'm sorry. That's just it's shitty to say it is. But when I think of the Steelers, it's a compliment in saying that y'all are a team that can do so well year in, year out, that you should be able to get there.
Yeah. Hey, they're still going to be a pain in the ass football team. I think they're still probably like 8-8 is still where I would look at them.
I think 7-6 is the floor.
Is the floor? Yeah, absolutely. Floor. I think 8-8, 9-7. That's probably where they're going to be.
Wild card spot.
Yeah, exactly. You're absolutely right. Look, I mean, to be fair, 10-6 missed last year, but I mean, more often than not, 9-7 can get you in. You look at the draft. I've seen a ton of people, and we do draft profiles on the Between the Pylons channel. So if you're watching there, you can go and find a bunch of draft profiles and a bunch of guys. And I've seen a lot of comments from Steelers fans saying, running back in the first or second round, and I've seen things like that. I think that the Steelers have to go offensive line first. I would think, and this is a good year to need a tackle. This is a good year to need offensive line, honestly. And I've said that a handful of times. So for people that are watching throughout this entire pod, I appreciate it. And I'm sorry I keep repeating myself, but I'm saying for people that may just be watching this episode and this division. So I think it's fair to point out that, hey, offensive line is going to be okay. Defensive line, they've been so good at drafting for so long.
I think they have Cam Hayward and Watt too.
Exactly. Right? Yeah, it's not going to be the end of the world. And running back, look, I really like the dude out of Memphis that they got last year, Anthony McFarland. Thank you very much. Yeah, I really like McFarland. I mean, I think he's going to be a star. I don't think they even need to draft another running back for Anthony McFarland to be the dude next year.
And they have Benny Snell still there.
Snell.
Not saying he's good. I'm just saying if you're going to run a running back by committee, you can swap him in and out.
Exactly. All right, let's move on to the Bengals. We got the graphic up right now for you. Where are you at with the Bengals? Just looking at this graphic, what do you think for this team?
So when looking at the Cincinnati Bengals losses early on, you see John Ross, you see A.J. Green, and those were staple pieces in that offense early on in that wide receiver game. But they have a Tyler Boyd, they have a T. Higgins. They have overachieved and outperformed a lot of expectations they had early on into the year. Carl Lawson is a big hit. A big loss, rather, in losing him. And William Jackson was a cornerback one that I felt like they couldn't afford to lose. They're okay, I guess, because they have some of those Vikings boys coming back, Trey Waynes and Mackenzie Alexander, who were hurt last year. Yeah. You pick up a Mike Hilton. You pick up a Wouzier from the Cowboys, and I think you are able to replace that secondary depth. You have a Jesse Bates up top at safety, who I think is one of a very underrated player that a lot of people just don't know about. I think he should be a Pro Bowl safety year in, year out. And then Trey Hendrickson, I see what you did. And
I didn't like the amount of money they gave him. They gave him.
You don't like Hendrickson?
Well, I like Hendrickson. I was surprised he got $60 million.
I would rather pay Carl Lawson.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I'm not saying he's like. I think it's a fine signing. I thought it was a lateral move, and to pay is Carl Lawson going to get that much? I don't think he did.
That's
I think
what
he
I
already
felt
got
like
signed.
they did.
Yeah,
in areas where they lost guys, they overpaid a lateral decision.
Yeah, because Mike Hilton and Awuzie are not going to be comparable to William Jackson. To me, William Jackson is a cornerback one that they couldn't afford, and I get why you can't afford everybody. I get it. It happens. But I was very sad to see him go from the Bengals. Happy to see him get paid. Surprised he wasn't the number one paid corner, but I've said that a handful of times already. I get what you're saying with the John Ross thing, or John Ross and AJ Green.
Yeah.
AJ Green going over to Arizona. Look, he had a ton of targets last year, couldn't produce. I do think he can have a bounce back year with Arizona, but I think it was time to go this year. And honestly, T. Higgins, he does a lot of the same things that AJ Green does, and T. Higgins, I think, has the upside of an AJ Green in the long term. I'm not saying he's that this year or even next year or anything like that, but I'm saying, like, I think he can be a star. I think he can be. I'm not saying he's going to be. I think he can be. And John Ross was kind of a bust of a first-round pick. You have, as you said, wide receiver depth that I think will be fine.
I think they covered their losses in free agency, but that's as the Bengals with as much cap and assets as you have going forward. I think you needed to get better.
Yeah.
I don't think you were at the spot where you could have had a little bit better than just being stagnant, covering your losses. So we'll see.
I get it. Where would you go in the draft?
It is often they pick number 4,
5.
5. Whatever tackle is there.
Yeah, so either Penei Sewell.
And I can just look at Joe Burrow's knee and tell you that's why you do that.
Yeah, Penei Sewell or Rashawn Slater. Well, because they're early, let's go into the second round. Where would you go second round? Just off the top of your head, real quick.
Possibly some of that defensive talent, because I think it is a lack of elite talent when it comes to what pops off of my head is all pro talent.
Yeah.
But there are some formidable defensive line pieces later on in the draft that they could look at in the second round.
Yeah, look, I mentioned it earlier talking about another team, but Jalen Phillips out of Miami is a guy that I look at in that late first, early second round that he has injury issues, but I think the upside is amazing for him, and I could see him going there. I absolutely agree. A cornerback in the second round, you're probably missing out on some of the top guys, but that's probably where you go there, either cornerback, DN, and there's probably a spot there for him.
Yeah.
All right, we're good on the Bengals. Let's move right along to the Browns. All right, we got the Browns up. Let's put up that graphic right now. You're wearing the jersey. They got the big signing in John Johnson. You got McKinney, who's been not great. Like he was a kind of a bust of a first round pick, but hopefully he can have a second win with the Browns and maybe be good. He's going into a situation where he doesn't have to be the number one, right?
Yeah.
You got Myles Garrett. You're good. You're not going to get the offensive line is not going to your side ever. They're always going to be focused on Myles Garrett. So hopefully you can perform a little bit better and have that opportunity. What do you think overall? Did they get better or worse?
I would say they got better. I look at Ogunjobi as a big loss in that interior defensive line.
I like Ogunjobi, yeah.
I like him a lot too. I think he's just one of those guys who's just a formidable starter, is able to really help out in the run game, and he frees up some space for those linebackers, because I don't think the Cleveland Browns have elite linebackers, so having that defensive lineman can really help you. It makes your job so much easier at that. They're still a good team. They are a run-heavy offense. We've seen Baker kind of grow into this role, and hopefully with a second year with Kevin Stefanski, it can get even better. So, yeah, I mean, I would say they got better.
Yeah.
John Johnson is a big help.
John Johnson was a huge signing. He got paid. He got paid big time, and I always wonder about that was one of the big splashy moves in free agency. I think it's one of those things though. That would have been a need in the draft needs section of this little graphic that I'll put right back up for you, but they filled it. So I mean, you gotta like when you categorically fix a problem on your defense, right? So I'm good with that. I feel good about John Johnson. I think he was a guy that the Rams probably wanted to keep, but you can't pay everybody, and safety is one of those positions that's easier to fill than others. Yeah. So I think it worked out for both teams. You go into the draft, you still need help at the defensive, the outside of that defense.
I think it's all defense. I love the offense.
Yeah, well, honestly, you're right, because it's linebacker, edge, cornerback, D tackle. Fix the defense. I mean, it's not even fixed. Upgrade the defense at certain spots, because I don't think they're terrible.
No, there's several areas where I think, God, they have Denzel Ward, they have a Myles Garrett, and then adding a John Johnson to the situation. They have the pieces. The Cleveland Browns are a very good football team. Offensively, I can't think of anywhere that they need to upgrade so desperately, though. They have a killer duo at running back right now. You have a formidable
duo at wide receiver.
Killer duo at wide receiver. You have some good tight ends and saying so. And to think that the offensive line is probably a top 3 in football. You look at the names: Jedrick Wills, Joel Bitonio, J.C. Treader, Wyatt Teller, Jack Conklin.
Yeah,
those
studs.
Top 5 at each of their positions, respectively. Studs. They're built. So go shore up some of these defensive guys. I think if I'm the Cleveland Browns, I take the shot at upside.
Yeah.
I'm purely looking at upside. I'm looking for the guy that kind of falls. They did it a few years ago with the Greedy Williams, who was kind of up there, fell down. You got to see that upside kind of come to fruition.
And look, it's still a need right now at corner. You lost a Terrence Mitchell, who was your cornerback too, but you still have that number. You have the number 1 short up at your corner. Greedy Williams hopefully can grow into that number 2, but if not, go grab another corner. I mean, you can always use another corner. I absolutely agree. They're not in desperate need anywhere, really.
No, they're not.
Yeah, I would have said safety was their biggest desperate need position. They filled that. Now it's just best player available on defense.
Cleveland Browns hype train again and again and again, and it sucks, man. It sucks, but I think they're winning the division.
Hell yeah, they're winning their division. They're beating the Ravens. That's a perfect segue. Let's go on over to the Ravens and tell me why they're beating the Ravens and what did the Ravens do that you liked? We're going to put the graphic up right now.
What they did that I liked. They got in Kevin Zeitler. You can never replace a Hall of Famer like Marshall Yanda. That's just flat out, point blank, period. We are done talking about that. Yeah. But Kevin Zeitler does have some really good snaps to his name in the NFL.
And it was a perfect signing because the way their gap offensive line scheme that they use or blocking scheme that they use is identical to the way the Giants block. So it's one of like the only teams that block this that have the same kind of blocking scheme. And Kevin Zeitler fits perfectly. He was a slam dunk pick, and I'm so glad they were able to grab him.
Considering what you were losing, to even get half value back, and I think you're doing a little bit better than that with Kevin Zeitler, you nailed it. Yep. So Baltimore, good job in doing so because it can go so wrong so quick with that offensive line and how that group really needs to mesh together to get things going with this Lamar Jackson offense. Totally okay with seeing Mark Ingram go. It's time for J.K. Dobbins' fantasy stock to go through the roof. Let that happen. You lose Matthew Judon, you lose Yannick. You really are going to need to work on your edge, I think, in this. Get a true pass rusher and a defensive end. You still have plenty of names that you can plug and play, and they're a very good team. They are a very good team. Overall, I think their success isn't going to come down to what they pick up in free agency or what they pick up in the draft. It's going to come down to can Lamar develop as a passer, and that is a completely different topic on this.
Do you think they need another wide receiver? Let me ask that. That's a draft need question.
Very glad you said that. Yes, they do need a wide receiver. I think they need a true number 1. I think they need a Kenny Golladay. I think they needed a Allen Robinson, who has since signed that franchise tag. I think they needed a big body target that has a wide catch radius that can help Lamar whenever some inaccuracy issues come. Because I feel like Hollywood has such a limited route tree, a limited catch radius. He is flashy, he is speed, he is all of those good things. But when you need a true possession wide receiver, honestly, it's like they need a younger Dez Bryant, if you will. I think Dez really fits that role well, way past his prime, way too old. But, Can I give you the
name I love for the Ravens in the first round? And I did a video on it. Check out the draft profile on Terrace Marshall.
Terrace
Marshall out of LSU. And look, he was last year in 2019. He was not last year, but in the 2019 college season, he was the wide receiver 3 on that awesome LSU team. This year, he's wide receiver 1 on that not good LSU team, and he's a check the box player. If you watch the draft profile, I said that like 100 times throughout that video because he fills every box, and I do think he's like I think his worst. He's a wide receiver 2 in the NFL, but on this team, he would pair so well with a Devin Duvernay and a Hollywood Brown, who are speed guys, right? And Devin Duvernay is a very good slot type of guy who I think I really like, and I think popped a little bit last year. But Terrace Marshall, I messed up the pronunciation of his name a bunch in that video too. You'll hear me go back and forth, by the way, if you listen to it. But Terrace Marshall is a guy I think could go on the outside and be that all around good wide receiver to kind of fill in this wide receiver role. And if it doesn't work with that crowd, assuming they got a guy like that, if it doesn't work with them, you start to look at the quarterback and say he's a one-trick pony at the quarterback position. And I don't want to say that because he has improved every year as a passer until 2020 season, where it kind of seemed like it was about the same. But you look, even going back to college, he's improved every single year as a passer. He has arm talent. He has arm, like, I just think it needs better. It needs to get better.
Zip. I think he gets a lot of criticism. I mean, he is a one-man highlight reel. He can take a team over. He can take a game over. We saw what he was able to do to the Titans. It was a slugfest, a slow game, and then one play, boom. Automatic game over for the Titans in my head. I feel like they lost the momentum. Then you get to a game like Buffalo, where you have a truly elite team that, not defensively, of course, but they are able to scheme around Lamar and kind of keep him in check and truly make him pass the ball. That's where we saw the fall apart there. Get him the wide receiver weapons. Maybe it gives him more of a confidence boost, a security blanket to make him not feel the pressure, because the pressure really gets to him, I think, sometimes in those moments.
And listen, I get that. I look at this team as just in general, like, it's a good team. What happened in free agency isn't going to make or break them. Like, they're still a good football team from all standpoints. I look at this team the same way I've looked at the Seahawks for all these years, where they are going to make the playoffs every single year.
Yeah.
Can they get past the big dog? And can they, like, in the NFC, it's just like you never knew who it was going to be. In the AFC, I know it's going to be the Chiefs pretty much every year.
Of course.
And then probably the Bills. I think those are the two teams they're going to have to get past in the playoffs for the next couple of years.
And the Ravens
they're getting to the playoffs every fucking year.
Toe-to-toe with the Chiefs. They have a team that can do this.
Yeah.
I mean, because any team can lose any given Sunday. So when you look at, power rankings stacked up, yes, they're a formidable team. They can do it.
Yeah.
They're built right. Maybe free agency's not going to kill them. Hit in the draft and then go forward. Hopefully you can improve on last year.
Speaking of the Chiefs, let's move on over to their division. Not the same team. We're going to talk about the Raiders first here, because they are... Wow, they're an interesting... I just feel bad for Raiders fans. I had to imagine they're freaking out right now. I'm going to do my best to console you, and I'm going to let him shit all over you. So
I want to do the shitting. I want to.
Let's talk about the Raiders. I'm going to put the graphic up right now. What do you think about this Raiders free agency so far?
You had a great offensive line. A killer offensive line.
They did.
And you said, let's see what we can do without it. Maybe you thought you were good enough to where you don't need an offensive line. That's fine. I love the confidence. That's cool. You're going to love it when you win 6 games next year without a quarterback. Gabe Jackson is a good starter. Rodney Hudson is an all-pro. Trent Brown was the guy that you paid a star. LaMarcus Joyner on defense. You lost Nelson Aguilar. That's fine. That's cool. You got the second wind out of him. You're good. Malik Collins is a starter. Tack McKinley was a second wind that didn't work out for you. Move him on. It is that offensive line, though. Good God. You added Yannick Ngakoue. That's cool. You got some alongside of Max Crosby. Maybe a Clelin Ferrell can really step up and do that. Your defense is going to be solid, I think.
Yeah.
John Brown at wide receiver. Upgrade from Nelson Aguilar. Quentin Jefferson, you get the starter maybe-ish plug and play for Malik Collins.
Yeah.
It is that offensive line, though. I guarantee you, if Russell Wilson puts out his list again, the Raiders aren't on that no more.
So, what I love about the way you said,
I don't want to come at everyone, man.
No. But what I love is, like, you said, I love the confidence. That is your go-to when you're talking shit, and like if we're playing basketball, you'll be like, "Oh, you think you can dunk on me? I love the confidence." That is your go-to shit talking phrase, and I know you long enough to know that. So I love that you used that on the Raiders. I love the confidence. I want to quote that and put that as the thumbnail.
I mean, there's nothing else I can say about it, because I don't know. They could prove me wrong.
Listen, and light at the end of the tunnel.
They're going to do it with that offensive line talent.
As I've said, if you're watching the full podcast, thank you so much for watching this far and continue to watch. But if you're just watching this division, I've said it many times so far, and I'll say it again. We don't know what their offensive line depth looks like. Maybe they feel really good about their guard and center position. Maybe they feel really good about the guys they have coming up and their backups. I don't know. And then Trent Brown was more of a cap casualty guy. I will look at that. Yeah. But they got value. They got some value for Rodney Harrison. I think they got like a 3rd round pick. They traded a 7th and Rodney Hudson for a 3rd round pick. Gabe Jackson they got a little bit of value for. Look, I get it. The craziest thing to me is they didn't need offensive line, and now it's their biggest need in the draft. That's never good to say.
That's what I'm saying. I understand having to let go of a Trent Brown because he wasn't willing to work with him on a restructure. That's fine, because he was one of the top paid tackles in the league.
And totally I don't blame him. He got traded. He kept that contract. Yeah. He's happy.
But you go from having a really good offensive front to not needing that in the draft, to where they could really fill some holes. And we saw them go toe-to-toe with the Chiefs in the regular season and beat them good. John Gruden and Mike Mayock have said that they have built their model as a chief beating machine is what they want to be. I think you need to go back into the draft, and you need to revamp and hope that your picks hit on that offensive line just to get back to where you were. on that level.
How are you on this Gruden-Mayock marriage? How are you on this, the way this franchise is right now? How much more of a leash are you giving them if you're the owner? Where are you with this team? It's so hard to say this in the offseason when we don't know what these decisions are going to actually end up meaning. But if you had to say it right now, where are you?
It's not as good as what I thought it would be. I think that they are going in a good direction. But what year was it? I just saw a report that came out.
It was 2018, I believe.
Evaluating their 2018 offseason moves. That was the Antonio Brown year, was it not?
I believe so.
And all the other choices that transpired since that.
2018 offseason, yeah.
It didn't look
exactly
good.
Right.
That did not look good at all.
No.
They misevaluated some talent here and there. They kind of had some misses at corner. Specifically, I can think of who was the guy he ended up going to the Texans.
Oh, yeah, Conley.
Garyon
Conley
was the guy that they kind of took a shot on, didn't hit. You missed out on the Antonio Brown thing. Clelin Ferrell was the cute move that was like, wow, Mayock, oh my gosh.
Took us
Max Crosby in the third round, your main lineman now.
Yeah. So, and Clelin Ferrell gets a bad rap. He's just not as good as the draft position.
You took him number 4 overall. Though.
Yeah, and that was just not a good move. So look, I totally get what you're saying. You look at the draft this year. It's a good year to need offensive line, as I've said 100 times. Good year to need wide receiver. You need wide receiver. Feels like they've really missed on Ruggs so far, but I hate saying that because it's still early. It's still early. Give him another year. You're allowed to not be awesome year one in the NFL. The NFL's hard. It's okay.
Not everyone's a Justin Jefferson.
Exactly. The Vikings fan over here talking shit. All right. So, O-line you need, wide receiver you need, D-line, safety, linebacker. Feels like they need a lot on defense. I don't think you're going to fill all these holes. Look, you said it yourself. They hit on a one-year wonder with Nelson Aguilar. Maybe they'll do that again in the coming days and weeks of grabbing not only a John Brown but like another wide receiver that could be really, really good contributor after and like a 1 year prove it kind of deal thing. And I don't know. I'm not even going to throw out names. I'm just saying like maybe something like that could happen with your linebackers, your safety. I'm not completely out on this team. I don't feel like they got better, and I hate feeling that way about any team in free agency. You want to feel like you got better after free agency. And I know it's still early. I don't see what they could do to change my opinion, though.
Fair enough.
All right, we'll move on. Let's pull up the Chiefs. Let's go Chiefs here, and we're just kind of going all over the place. Chiefs didn't do a whole lot, so this is going to be kind of quick. I mean, it must be fun to be a really good team in the NFL, where it's like if you're a fan of the Chiefs, it's like you're not really worried about free agency. You're just worried about next November. I mean, shit.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's got to be fun.
You want to fast forward the season.
20 to 25 franchises. This is as good as it gets. Is free agency and the hope. I mean, I'm a Dolphins fan. I know what that feels like. So here we see them swing big on some offensive linemen. That was their big need. It got Joe Thuney. It's not Thuney. It's Thuney. I didn't know that until today. Kyle Long comes back out of retirement. I was listening to a podcast today. I was talking about how he just needed a year. He had a bunch of little things.
He wants that ring.
Yeah, and he's a big physical dude. Everybody that I've heard talk about him thinks he's going to come back and be a very good starter. He just had a lot of injuries and he needed to take a year off, and that was kind of his retirement year off kind of thing. Look, they cut both of their tackles. Hey, everybody hated that move. Who cares? Eric Fisher was fine. But he's not great. Mitchell Schwartz is fine, but he's not great. Go draft a tackle at 32. Trade up, get a tackle in a very deep tackle class. I think you're going to be competitive with the guys that you drafted. Also, you went out and got Joe Thuney. You got a Kyle Long. I'm fine with those moves.
Because of them shoring up that interior offensive line, yes, we know what they're going to address in the draft. They're going to get a flashy wide receiver, I'm sure. Just because I think Sammy Watkins is gone, right?
Sammy Watkins is gone, and yeah, those are
that did nothing for me, anyways. I'm just saying they have a gap. They always are good at that.
My dream pick for them in the first is
Don't say Kadarius Toney.
It's Kadarius Toney. I love it. Kadarius Toney's going to be a dude. Y'all believe me. Kadarius Toney's going to be a dude.
Listen,
I love Kadarius.
I like Kadarius Toney too. He's a human highlight reel. He's a human joystick. Reminds me of a Dante Hall. Yeah. Played for the Chiefs. I feel like everyone's plugging that there.
Oh, I'm putting him there. Yeah,
I feel like everyone's.
I haven't heard anybody else say that, so I feel like I'm alone saying that, but I'm sure everybody is saying that. That's an easy one.
That is the move.
Is
man.
it okay? So I haven't heard
it. The Chiefs are going to be year in year out the favorite just because of what they have under center and the weapons and the coaching staff, everything. If there's a team that can afford to cut their 2 starting tackles and be okay, because they were without Who were they without?
They were without both of them in the Super Bowl.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yes, they lost that game. Yes, that was a big playing point. But they must have saw something that they liked going forward in a down cap year where you're able to make these moves.
Yeah.
Listen, they know more than us.
Yeah. And, I mean, this is a team that's going to be right back in that AFC Championship conversation next year. I mean, they're the new Patriots of the AFC. I'm not worried about them. Let's talk re-sign just for a second. They bring back Charvarius Ward. They bring back Pringle. They bring back Taco Charlton, who's getting kind of a third win after, going from the Cowboys to the Dolphins and now the Chiefs, and hopefully he can kind of find a role, former first-round pick who's kind of a bust at this point. But interesting re-signings. They're keeping the band together for the most part.
They are.
And a small note before we move on, Damian Williams, after opting out and being replaced, opted out after he was a running back was drafted in the first round to replace him, and now he's cut. You feel for him, but that's the business, and it is what it is. Mm-hmm. He was one of the most surprising opt-outs because I felt like his job was already on the line, and it's like...
And he needed to show up and show out.
Exactly. Yeah. So it is what it is. We'll move on. There's never really a whole lot to talk about with great teams in free agency, right? We're going to go Broncos next, all right? Broncos, put it up on the screen there. Again, not a whole lot of additions. What is your first reaction to seeing something like this?
They aren't as high on my brain as they were last year.
Really?
And it's sad to say because I know both of us really like the Broncos going forward. Mm-hmm. I thought Drew Lock was ready to make that emergence. Cortland Sutton was a breakout wide receiver for me. The injury kept that in check. I understand. Jerry Jeudy is a promising piece. But, I don't think they made enough moves in areas that they should. I think their secondary is going to be hurting really bad unless they're able to somehow make the replacement for it. But I don't think that Where do they pick? I'm off the top of my head. They are in elite cornerback range, I believe.
I believe so.
They can
too.
get one of the
Let
top
me look
two
it up
if
while
they
you're
want.
talking.
So I mean, yeah, there's a way that they're able to do it. You lose Jarrell Casey, you have an aging Von Miller who, coming off of that injury, hopefully is still able to produce. Bradley Chubb. We have yet to see the Von Miller-Bradley Chubb marriage on the field that I thought we would get to, and that can be so disruptive on the field together. Just stay healthy. It was literally the last play of practice. I remember us playing basketball whenever we found out the news.
So
and it was like,
sad.
Man, no way. Really? That happened? It's just misfortunate. Hopefully they're able to get things going.
And they're 9th overall, by the way. Yeah.
They could very well pick one of those guys then.
Yeah, they could get a Caleb Farley. They could get a Surtain.
What do you think? Because I know that we have talked about Drew Lock a lot and you've liked some of the things that you've seen. You got to address the quarterback.
I'm not out on it. I'm sorry. I still believe in Drew Lock. I get that everyone's out on it. He threw too many interceptions. First of all, last year was injuries all over the place, right? So like let's give it a little bit of a pass. He's a young guy and he certainly needs work. I'm not saying he's a finished product, but I didn't see anything that was just like a killer. He was trying to make throws down the field. There were some bad throws that I don't condone in any way and certainly give me pause. But there was a lot of those interceptions that I saw that was like, man, he's trying to make a play for a team that's just undermanned in a lot of spots, right? So I can give him a pass on some of the interceptions. As I said, not all of them. I look at him as a guy I still believe in from my draft evaluation and from his first year where he showed some promise. This past year wasn't great. I get it. I think you get your Sutton back. You have a Jerry Jeudy. You probably addressed the running back situation. You moved on from Philip Lindsay, who's just a great story, but I mean, he was just an undersized guy who just I think got beat up, and I don't think he's the same guy he was in year one, and it's so unfortunate, but that running back window gets so much smaller when you're already a small guy, and I don't know, it just is what it is for him. We'll see what we can get from the second wind of a Melvin Gordon's career at the running back position. I don't know. I think they draft running back a second, third round, and I think their offense is still really, really good. I mean, they probably should draft an offensive tackle at some point in the first 3 rounds.
Fell off in my head. You were saying last year, take the break. It was a COVID year, a lot of injuries.
Let's
put that same hype into this year. And
that's what I'm saying. You're down. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm here for the hype. Look, I get it. They didn't add anybody exciting. Ronald Darby, meh. I mean, not a cornerback we're going to write home.
I think he
Mike Boone. Yeah, Mike Boone running back to replace a Philip Lindsay, meh. Like, I get it, but they didn't have a ton of room to work with, and all of the pieces that I was excited about, I'm still excited about. I mean, they re-signed a lot of their guys, and they lost a Jarrell Casey, a defensive tackle who was on his last leg, and they traded for and were hoping to get a little bit more out of him. And AJ Bouye, a bad free agency pickup a couple years ago, and a Philip Lindsay who was not the same guy last year.
I can get hype about their offensive weapons.
Yeah.
Noah Fant, Albert O, Tim Patrick being re-signed is an amazing 3. He stepped up in a big way last year. Jerry Jeudy and hopefully the emergence of Cortland Sutton.
Yeah.
I get it. I want to see Drew Lock be the guy. I really do. And I
believe him.
I think they're going to give him another year to do it. Yeah. I don't think they're going to pull the trigger on quarterback right now.
No. And like I said, I 100% believe in him.
Unless it's Deshaun, because we've heard the Deshaun to the Broncos and 49ers pretty much anywhere. That's a different spectrum, though.
Yeah, of course. And that's the thing. Is like I get that, like, okay, the Broncos were in the conversation for Deshaun. Yeah, every team except for like 5 should have been in the conversation for Deshaun. So, like, because they were interested in Deshaun does not mean that Locke is a bad player. The Dolphins were interested in Deshaun, and they're not, like, shitting on Tua. He's going to be a quarterback that we'll see what happens, but, like, it's not a sure thing. You take the sure thing over the not sure thing.
There are very few teams out there.
It's not the same.
Exactly.
It's not the same. It's not like they're looking for a quarterback and they'll take whoever they can get. They're looking at Deshaun fucking Watson. So I just hate the narrative, they were looking at Deshaun, so they hate their quarterback. I just don't think that's accurate. So, like, that's my take. We'll move on. Anything else you want to say on draft needs or anything?
We got the last team in the West.
Cornerback in the first round. So that's where we're going with it.
I think Caleb Farley would be a cool one.
Farley would be a good one. All right, last one. We're going to go Chargers. Man, they're the exciting team, right? Like, they're the team, and I get we're putting this graphic up now, and they took a lot of hits in free agency. I get it, but at the end of the day, man, you got a team that has you got Herbert, and he is an emerging superstar. Get some weapons around him. Get more weapons around him. I put wide receiver, not even really thinking they need wide receiver, just because I want him to have another weapon. I mean, I'll give me your reaction to this list.
No, I think that the Chargers are a very, very good football team going forward. I feel like I beat a dead horse in saying that they've just had really shitty luck when it comes to the ending of ball games and blowing leads and certain things like that. With a new coaching staff, hopefully you can shore that up. And in those areas, you flip a few of those L's to W's last year, they're in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Add in another year where you get to see, hopefully, dodge the sophomore slump, because that's always a thing for some pros out there that scouts are scared of. But as long as Herbert is able to grow and evolve into that mold and really get the leadership behind that team, it is a very competitive division.
And at the end of the day, I mean, I think they're coming into the draft with the same needs they came into free agency with, right? So you lose a guard, you replace it with a different one. Like Corey Lindsey I think they overpaid a little bit, but he's a really, really good player. You lose Hunter Henry. Jared Cook is a downgrade, but I mean, he's still an all right tight end. They'll be fine. You add an extra right tackle. They really attack the offensive line, which is, I think, a good thing. I don't think Casey Hayward's a hit, but I mean, he's older, and I don't think he's a huge loss. Nick Vigil's a guy that, like, I kind of liked as an inside linebacker, but he wasn't like the prototypical current linebacker. He was more of a hard hitting. He would have been a much highly respected guy 15 years ago. He's just not the same guy. So I don't look at any of their losses as huge hits. They need to hit in the draft, and I'd like to get them another weapon, a defensive stud maybe in the first round, and then a wide receiver in the second.
I just want to see Derwin come back healthy.
Oh, Derwin, yeah, and they're getting Derwin back, and Derwin is going to be the centerpiece of that defense with their new coach, who did a lot with a good Rams defense. So we'll see what can happen. I'm excited for this Chargers team, man. They're going to be really good, and I mean, they're picking early, right? I mean, they're picking
fairly.
Where are they picking? I won't even say it. Yeah, I'm excited for this Chargers team. I think they have. I think they could be competitive in, like, I'm not in the division. They're not going to beat the Chiefs out for the division, but very competitive and could probably surprise people. Be a wild card team that wins a game or two. I mean, in the playoffs. So yeah, I'm excited. That's it. Let's move on to the NFC. All right, so let's start with the NFC East. We are going to get started with the Cowboys. Let's put the graphic up right now for you. And I mean, what is your first reaction after looking at this?
Well, Jerry Jones didn't set his alarm clock and realize that free agency started. That's what I think happened. What do you think? It's minimal moves.
No, minimal moves, and it's smart. We've seen a handful of teams, especially I think in the NFC East. We're going to go through this pretty quick because it's just a couple teams that are waiting to see what happens and waiting to get those tier 2 of free agents. You got to remember, like, we're recording this a couple days after the start of free agency, and the craziness of free agency has not been what it normally is. I feel like as far as like,
weird year.
Yeah, it just is because not every team has the amount of cap. There's been a lot of cuts and stuff, so there's a lot of guys still on the market, and we don't know what to expect. And like I said, like, we're recording this a little bit before obviously the video is going to come out. So maybe we'll add some names on here in post that aren't on here as we're talking about it. But right now, yeah, not a whole lot to say. They Andy Dalton, their backups moving on. Cam Irving, Awuzie, and Chris Worsley. Chris Worsley must be a backup. I don't know that name at all. Westry, thank you. And then Awuzie, he's a starter. So missing a cornerback and a left guard as far as like the starters that they're losing. Other than that, not a whole lot of losses here.
Yeah, the biggest thing that you had to look at from Dallas last year was just Dak and how to resolve that situation. It seems like they got it. They paid the man. They got him back in there, so we get to see Mike McCarthy, Dak, hopefully take this NFC least division and run forward with it. And maybe, it's up for grabs for sure. So the Cowboys always have that opportunity. I think they have the best roster out of these teams in this division. Theirs for the taking. It's also been theirs for the taking for many years now, though, and that's why we're here. Draft needs. Offensive line. I can't name an offensive line that has more turnover than the Dallas Cowboys recently. You look back 5 years ago, and they were just night in, night out the number one offensive line. You had, a young Zeke, not 5 years, but saying in the past few seasons, Zeke was able to really lead the league in rushing back-to-back seasons because of that line. You're able to protect your quarterback. And now it is so different. It is just a whole new world. That's where they're going to have to target early in the draft. I could see them going. It's either O-line or cornerback.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. And then, we have safety in there as under draft needs, and that can be addressed later on. Again, you find starting safeties in the mid-rounds of the draft all the time, so I'm not really worried about that. You're absolutely right. O-line, cornerback, this team on paper should be good, and I do, look, you know this, and people that listen to the pod know this, but I blame McCarthy. I really do. I blame the scheme. I think it is what it is. We'll see. Hopefully Dak can come in and his health obviously would have won them a lot more games last year. Yeah. But at the end of the day, they underperformed regardless of who the quarterback was.
Of course they did. Yeah. I think we just have to take last year. Van Der Esch was hurt a lot too.
They had injuries everywhere. You're absolutely
right. So I'm just going to go ahead and consider that because I'm not a pro McCarthy guy, but I was a pro McCarthy in Dallas hire guy. So I want to see it work out in a way. It's weird saying that. I don't want to see Dallas Cowboys fans get hyped and go crazy because they'll come out.
Oh, yeah.
They'll come out. They're waiting.
I like Dallas Cowboys fans. I don't have a problem with that. All right. We will move on let's go to the Eagles next because it's crazy. We're going to go from first to worst in this division. That's not a huge gap, especially last year anyway. But we got the Eagles over here. Lost a lot of players. Obviously, Carson Wentz is the headliner. They ended up trading to the Colts. We knew about that. Got a couple safeties there that are gone. Obviously, a couple wide receivers. A D tackle took some hit as well. What do you think looking at this Eagles roster in general?
It's nothing really that changed right here. Yes, you moved on from Carson Wentz. I am a Jalen Hurts fan. I think that the Eagles should dedicate this year because I see this as a win-win no matter what. Go out there, see what you have in Jalen Hurts. You invested a second-round pick into him, so clearly you value him to some extent. It kind of tapers off last year towards the end of that with Swat bringing in the backup. It was just a different narrative.
Yeah, it was weird.
Different head coach though, so we'll see the way it goes. Win-win situation. Play Jalen, make it, see what it is. If it hits, good, you won. If it doesn't hit, good, you won because now you know what you can do going forward and what you don't have. On the defensive side of the ball, there are so many gaps with some aging veterans that you need to start replacing.
That they're paying way too much.
They really are. It's kind of ugly. Offensive line, I actually really like this unit if they are able to stay healthy.
Yeah.
We saw them lose Brandon Brooks. We saw them have to kick over a Jason Peters into another spot. Andre Dillard got hurt for the whole year, and you still have to address that wide receiver position.
Wide receiver,
it's probably one of the worst.
They do need a right tackle, but other than that, I absolutely agree. I almost put dealer's choice under here in their draft needs as far as because I do think you could say a lot of things. I threw quarterback in there because I know you're a believer of Jalen Hurts. I'm not as much, but I definitely have hope for him. Like I'm rooting for the guy.
Where are the Eagles pick?
I believe they're seventh or eighth. No, they're not eighth. They're seventh. Yeah. Pretty sure.
That's
it might be sixth.
I think it's sixth.
It might be sixth. You're right.
So
you're right.
Being in that spot though, that's quarterback ground.
If they wanted to go that route, I don't expect them to. I think this is. We mentioned it. I think this is tear down and build back up next year. That's kind of the way I look at these Eagles. They don't have really any cap room to work with, so I don't know. There's definitely going to be some smaller moves on the horizon, but overall, it feels like this is a down year, and I don't know how this
the dead money
turn
Carson
around.
Wentz year.
Yeah, exactly.
Eat that.
Yeah, they're going to have to eat a big chunk of that. that. All right, we'll move on. Not a whole lot to say there. And like you said, I'll finish with this. I agree. Other than Malik Jackson, I don't think there's anybody that they're losing that, other than Carson Wentz, that didn't deserve to be gone. You know what I mean? So I think that's totally fair. Let's move on to the Giants, an up and comer teamer for you. Let's put up the graphic. I want you to headline this Giants talk because I know how high you are on them this year.
Yeah, I like the Giants just because of the way that the coach was able, Joe Judge was able to step in and really get them to rally around this underperforming on paper roster. I mean, he had a lot of nobody names show up and really rally together. They had a lot of good plug-and-play starters on the defensive side of the ball. They made a deal with Leonard Williams, so they were able to bring him back, lock him down. The addition of John Ross at wide receiver. Yes, I know John Ross has been an overall bust, getting taken whenever, I think it was 11th overall because he broke the 40 record. I get that. There's a chance for a second wind. There is room in that wide receiver core to grow because they cut Golden Tate, which we called, by the way, because of a cap casualty.
Yeah.
You know, Mike Glennon does nothing for me adding him at quarterback. That's just behind Daniel Jones. Kyle Rudolph at tight end. Kyle Rudolph is a very, very good gap off of the tackle tight end whenever he can help out in the pass blocking. He's a very good run blocker. Saquon coming back healthy. Daniel Jones, I like Daniel Jones. I don't think Daniel Jones could be... I'm not saying that he is the guy. I'm just saying he is a starting quarterback in the National Football League. Going forward, he can lead your team.
Yeah.
And when I think of an Eli Manning, it's not that far apart from me in a Daniel Jones way. I know Eli Manning is a Hall of Famer and a Super Bowl winning quarterback and all that good stuff. I'm not saying that he is that.
You're wrong for saying that.
Yeah, it's a good quarterback.
If Daniel Jones can get to the level of poise and
he can be that. Yes.
Yeah, he definitely can be an Eli Manning. So yeah, I don't think there's anything wrong with saying that. When you look at needs, you got where would you go in the first round?
It's so tough. I would take best available player.
Best available, because there's a lot of needs there. O-line, D-line,
the
wide
obvious
receiver.
Wide receiver gap, but I am a fan of Darius Slayton, and I think if you're able to use a John Ross at the number 2 and then have a Sterling Shepard, I don't think that is just absolutely devoid like I consider Philadelphia's wide receiver.
Yeah.
Philadelphia has to get one soon. The Giants can afford to get one in the second or third. I think first round overall pick, maybe take the guy that falls down to you that wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. There's a chance that they could take a defensive lineman like a Kwity Paye because they lost Dalvin Tomlinson early. So he's a member of the Vikings now, so we'll have to see what they do with that.
Yeah, Rashawn Slater would be another one at 10, or at 11, excuse me. So yeah, I absolutely agree. There's some movement, there's some options, and somebody's going to fall. I guarantee you, guys are going to trade up from behind the Giants at 11 to go grab a quarterback. I would be surprised if it doesn't happen with at least one of those teams that doesn't trade up into the top 10. So somebody is going to fall that probably shouldn't fall outside of the top 10, right? So take best available. I think no matter what, you're going to hit some kind of need on your roster. I mean,
of course.
And like you said, I think we
didn't even name cornerback.
No, corner. Yeah, I mean, and there's certainly some names there that they could go at 11 as well. I'll finish it off with the Giants and just say they remind me of what the 2019 Dolphins were, and meaning like I would expect them to come into this year having the type of season that the 2020 Dolphins had, right? So a very surprising year for everybody. I'm not saying they're going to come out and win 10 games, but I think they're going to surprise some people and be a lot better than people are maybe expecting. I'm
right there with. Yeah. I'm really high on them.
Yeah, so I think that's a good way to say it. Anything else you want to go with the Giants there?
No. Wrap up the NFC East with a team that I know you said has absolutely dominated free agency.
Yeah, this was the best free agent team. Like, this team crushed it. I mean, we're going to throw it up. We got William Jackson and Curtis Samuel that headline this free agency pool, and that's enough. You got William Jackson, who should have been the highest paid corner, and he wasn't. The Jags paid Griffin more than Washington's going to pay William Jackson. That's ridiculous. William Jackson is a shutdown corner in this league. Maybe people are lower on him than me, but in my opinion, that is what he can be, and that's what he is right now. Curtis Samuel is going to be an awesome number 2 to pair alongside of Terry McLaurin, and I know Curtis Samuel had people. Some people are down on Curtis Samuel. I get it. I mean, I just believe in him. I do. I believe in the talent. You got a couple of Ohio State boys there in Washington now, and Curtis Samuel came on big time at the end of the year last year and kind of showed that he certainly has the talent, even though maybe the stats didn't rack up. You grab my guy Ryan Fitzpatrick, and I put for Ryan Fitzmagic. The only guy I put their nickname on there just because he's magic, man. I love him, and I don't know if he'll be the starter. I can't imagine they're planning on going into the season with him as a starter, but whoever you get, and then they're probably going to have to go quarterback in the first round, right? Realistically, that's probably the move. Whoever it is, you have one of the best mentors to be alongside. You're paying him $10 million. I mean, he deserves more. I mean, yes, and I think that's a great deal for them to get him for $10 million this year. He can come in and start and win you games. He'll lose you some too. I mean, we know what he is, but he's going to be the best mentor you could ask for whoever you get. He's going to get the most out of whoever comes in to be that rookie quarterback to take over the future. I love it, and I don't feel like they lost a lot. Ronald Darby's become kind of a journeyman at the tail end of his career.
Guys, yeah.
You know, a couple linebackers there that definitely are going to hurt. But other than that, like I think this team got a whole lot better over the past couple of days.
They did. You don't think Taylor Heineke's the guy at all?
Yeah, no.
Man,
some people do, and that's fine. I mean, maybe he is.
I do. I do. I'm not saying that he is going to be the guy that turns the Washington football team around. Of course, they have quarterback needs that need to be addressed, and that's fine. Wouldn't surprise me one bit if they end up taking a Justin Fields, if they take the Trey Lance, if they take anyone like that. There is a chance they could do that for sure.
It's just the problem is they're in the 20s, so they would have to make a move.
That's what exactly. Yeah. Mac Jones, anything. That's why I think that they could run this year with Taylor Heineke. Listen, Scary Terry went on Twitter after that playoff game and said, "I'll go to battle with number 4 all day, Taylor Heineke," and saying he showed heart, he showed grit. That playoff game was incredible.
Yeah,
if he's able to bring that into next year's season, listen, that's a team that shows up that you do not want to play because offensively, yes, that's where they're going to go in the first round. That's where they should go in the second round and probably third round. I think they have a top 5 defensive line. They have an okay linebacker core. Adding William Jackson at your number 1 is a great move for free agency. I think that was the home run signing that they were able to land.
I agree.
Got to get some offensive talent in there, though. But yes, Heineke has some grit. He showed it. They have some good wide receiver weapons. I really like how Antonio Gibson came on strong towards the end last year. It was unfortunate to see him get hurt, but full head of steam going forward. Downhill runner, Ron Rivera. I love the way that he has this team all together. They rallied. So it's going to be a really interesting way to see how this division shapes up.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I'm excited to see Washington. It wouldn't surprise me a bit if they won their division next year again.
Same for the Giants and then the Cow. I think the only team that doesn't have a chance, I'm sorry, Philadelphia fans. I'm sorry. I think it's y'all.
Yeah, and I think they know that. I mean, let's just be realistic there. We'll see what happens. That's going to be. It wouldn't surprise me a bit if this division gets scary good next year after having a really down year. But let's move on to the NFC North, your division with your team. You want to start with your Vikings?
Go ahead.
Let's do it. Let's start with the Vikings here. Then we got the additions. Put up the screen now. What do you think? I'm going to let you take it and run with it.
Yeah, I'm happy, actually. I'm not going to lie. So one of the biggest things that we struggled with last year was our defense. Our defense was absolute garbage. And, I'm a huge critic of Kirk Cousins. I think that he is a good quarterback, just getting great elite quarterback money, and that's where the discrepancy comes in for me. Kirk Cousins is a more than formidable starter, though, in this league, and he is capable of taking the Vikings as far as they're able to go. Last year, it was Mike Zimmer and the defense that let us down. We picked up Dalvin Tomlinson. Yeah. He is an incredible defensive force up front. Daniil Hunter, I'm hoping that we're able to renegotiate with him and get him back on the team. Michael Pierce, all-pro defensive lineman, opted out because of the COVID issues. He's coming back.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's able to free up some of those gaps and let Anthony Barr and Eric Kendricks run free. We're able to pick up a Patrick Peterson for $10 million. Yes, I know some people are already done with Patrick Peterson, but we need it. So for me, having Pat P as the 1, Jeff Gladney at the 2, and then a Mike Hughes at the 3 or a Cam Dantzler at the 3.
And whoever you draft in the first round.
Because we always draft that cornerback in the first round. It doesn't sound that bad to me. Looking at the offensive side, the one that surprised me the most was losing Riley Reif at tackle. Yeah. It was a big payday for sure, but God dang, we know, everyone who knows a little bit about football knows the Vikings have always struggled with the offensive line. Why do that to ourselves? Why not just try to renegotiate with him? It's rough. I think that's where we're gonna go this year's tackle, honestly.
Yeah, I think you attack the trenches. I think at the end of the day, that's kind of you got to go O-line, D-line, and then cornerback is still crazy enough. Is still a need.
Is the window over though? Like it is, isn't it? Sadly,
I don't.
As much as I want to flex the Dalvin Tomlinson signing, the Michael Pierce acquisition again coming back.
There's nobody in that additions column that puts you into like the Super Bowl conversation for me. No,
and that's what sucks. But on paper, you have a Dalvin, you have a Kirk, you have a Justin Jefferson, and an Adam Thielen,
I love
and
the
hopefully
offense.
an emerging Irv Smith.
I absolutely
would like
agree.
to see it.
Yeah, I do wonder. I'm getting to the point, and I don't want to do this to you, but I am getting to the point where I'm like, is the scheme just getting? Do they need to revamp? Like, do they need to move on from Zimmer?
Too much of an old head scheme?
Yeah, is the scheme just too old? Like, because they do have all the pieces. You're absolutely right. Like, I love all of those guys in a vacuum, and together they should be great, and they are good at times. But there's also weeks where it's like they are complete duds, and it seems like they can't get anything going.
Of course.
It's unfortunate, but it feels like their Vikings are good for that, like 3 or 4 games a year, and that always those 4 games that you lose just because you don't come out playing strong.
It's the difference in the
playoffs. It puts you down to like a 10-9 win team, where on paper the roster itself probably should be better than that, and it's not. So I get where you're saying, but yeah, I'm getting to that point. I'm not saying, hey, fire Zimmer.
You don't have quarterback on draft needs, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
There's a chance.
All right,
you don't think there's any way in hell we take a quarterback?
I want to give a little bit of behind the curtain a little bit for people listening. He sent me kind of all the information, and I put up the graphic for this, right? Yeah. So that was kind of how we worked together on this show, and he put in draft needs as everything you see there, plus the quarterback position, and I made an executive decision there. I figured
our general manager said that he has done heavy work on this quarterback class.
I get it, and I left it out. Maybe I can't put it back in now because we already talked about it. It's not in there.
No, you're good. It's fine. Keep it off.
I kept it. I kept it off because I just don't see you guys realistically targeting the quarterback position when you're paying $40 million for your starter. I don't. Are you thinking a quarterback of the future, or are you thinking a backup in the mid rounds?
No,
you're thinking quarterback of the future.
Yeah,
I just don't think that's happening this year.
I get that completely.
And you look, you might be right, but I
Mac
get what
Jones
you're saying.
In the second round.
I know Mac Jones not going. Mac Jones isn't falling out of the top 15. That's the thing.
You changed on that much now?
I'm not saying he should. I still think he's a bottom of the first, second round guy.
We pick at 14.
But yeah, well, okay, yeah. If you might, I just can't imagine passing. If you grab Trey Lance at 14, that would be interesting because then you could set him for a year. But Trey Lance doesn't fit what Zimmer wants at all.
You're right.
I mean, you know what I mean?
You're right. He wants the single back under center.
Zimmer would like Mac Jones more.
Zimmer probably would.
Yeah. So maybe Mac Jones goes.
I'm just saying that our general manager has addressed the time of Kirk is. You can see the light at the end of the tunnel. Yeah. That contract will eventually be up.
Yeah, they're realizing that the financial strain of paying a guy in free agency who clearly is there for the money first and foremost is getting to its breaking point a little bit. So yeah, I get what it's saying, and it seems like every team that goes on a run that has the ability to create a really good roster has a young quarterback for 4 years. Yeah. Then they pay him, and then they reload, knowing where they're at.
They're able to work around that.
Exactly, yeah. And the Vikings have been kind of in a weird spot. All right, we spent enough time on the Vikings. Let's move on here.
Fuck you.
Well, you know what I mean. I'm trying to keep it rolling here. Let's move on to the Bears, who I think are. Sorry, Bears fans, if you're out there, don't listen to this one. I think they're in contention for like a top 3 pick next year. I really do. I don't see how this doesn't fall apart. I mean, I don't.
You still have a really good defense. They have a great defense.
They do. They absolutely do.
They have a great defense. If Andy Dalton, listen, okay, you'll be back up. I'll be good captain. That's fine. I'm fine with this. I did not want to do it for the fucking Bears, but I'll do it. I don't think Andy Dalton's going to be your starter. I know that he has come out and said that that's the reason that he came to Chicago was that he was given that job. But listen, Trubisky, Nick Foles, Andy Dalton, whatever the case is, I don't think any of those guys appease me more than what the last guy who was starting does. So I still take that for what it is. You have Allen Robinson. I'm not a big Matt Nagy fan off the top of my head, but the offensive line is solid. They're formidable at times, and I think that you're able to grind out some wins, get a 6 to 8 win season.
Yeah, I get that.
The defense rolls.
I think they overachieved last year. That's my thing. Is I watched a team that overachieved won games that they probably shouldn't have won, and most consistently I watched them play games or play teams where it's like, man, you don't win that if you play. You don't win more than like 2 times if you played 5 times in a row. You know what I mean? And just kind of was able to grind out some lucky wins. I feel like at times I see a team that you lost some cornerback depth there. You lost your right tackle. I think that's just the backup right tackle though. Roy Robertson, who was hurt last year, so didn't didn't make a big difference, but he is a pretty good D tackle that they're going to miss. I feel like they definitely have a defense. You're absolutely right. Their defense is really, really good, and their defense is probably going to win them enough games to keep them out of that top 3 convo that I did mention. You're absolutely right about that. It just would not surprise me a bit if they aren't able to get a quarterback, if it just falls apart. It really wouldn't. At a certain point, I don't believe in Matt Nagy either. I don't believe in the offense, and I do believe Trubisky's better than Dalton. I'm sorry, I do. I think Foles is better than Dalton too, and people might argue with that, but I think Dalton is a guy who needs a lot of help around him, and he has some help, so I get it. I saw this Dalton signing as hey, we're going to go trade up and get a quarterback.
There's a chance for that. So speaking of trades, I think it's important that we mention the offer that got leaked. I don't know. Do you believe this offer? I think it's bullshit. I think the Bears are letting this leak and being like, hey, we did our best. Like, I really do. The player names came out today.
Okay, let's hear it.
They offered to Seattle for Russ. It was 3 firsts, a third, Akeem Hicks, and Kyle Fuller. That was the 2 unnamed starters, and Seattle said no to that.
Well, they cut Kyle Fuller, so it wasn't even...
after the fact. I'm sure they were trying to throw him in on the deal.
Yeah, Akeem Hicks. Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't take that deal for Russell Wilson. I'm sorry. I wouldn't. If I have Russell Wilson, I'd rather have Russell Wilson than those fucking first round. What are those? I mean,
the team getting Russ would make your first round pick devalue in itself because it's going to be good. No,
especially because the Bears' first round pick, it's not like that first round pick has no value compared to like a top 5 pick. Like the Dolphins offer that same pick with like comparable players. I think you consider it solely because at 3, you think you can get a guy to replace him. And really, honestly, you don't even consider it unless it's the Jets offering it.
But the Jets first really isn't all that whenever it falls from 15 to 25.
Yeah,
it's really not.
Yeah, exactly. So, and you got to look, the Bears are picking at 20 this year. I think they're going to have to trade up in the top 10. I mentioned it, like what if they tried to pull off a blockbuster move to get up to 3 to get their pick of the pie, you know? And look, as a Dolphins fan,
blockbuster.
It would be ridiculous. And I'm not saying it's going to happen. I do think they're trading up. They're going to get into like the Eagles could trade down. Like they could get to there at least, and maybe it's not as much. But at 3, theoretically, if the Dolphins made that move, would not have a problem with taking those next 3 first-round picks.
They sell the entire franchise to go get Mac Jones, Justin Fields, maybe?
I think if they're doing it, they probably go get Justin Fields or Trey Lance or something like that. I don't know. Yeah, I agree. I think there's probably going to be a guy there at 22 or at least at like the 15 range where it's not as bad of a trade up. So realistically, that's probably what happens. There is no way in my mind where their first pick isn't a quarterback though. Is that fair to say?
I mean, for sure, unless there's just a chance that somehow 5 quarterbacks go before that and they just sit on their hands and don't make the move.
Yeah,
that's the only way that I see it. And maybe they're going to take this year for what this year is and see what they have in Andy Dalton and wait for next year's class. I don't know.
The reason I feel like it's such a time like sensitive thing is because Nagy and Pace are not going to be there next year to have like to figure it out with a new quarterback.
I completely agree with you on that urgency because you got to look at the coaching staff as a whole. They're like, hey, that's cool. Like some dude's like, why don't we wait till next year? There's Sam Howell, there's Brock Purdy, there's some good names coming out. And then Nagy's like, I won't be here next year if I do this again. Yeah. And he's right.
Yeah, he's absolutely right.
He's got to make the move.
And the thing is, if I'm the ownership, there's no way I put the decision makers in that type of situation where they feel like they're up against a wall and they have to make a decision that is not long term. That is not even 3 years. It's a panic button short term move. If I can get a quarterback that I like, and if I can get him to show that he has enough promise under our system to keep me around for another year, maybe I can keep my job. If that's the way your head coach and GM is thinking, I mean, I would have moved on already. I mean, I would have. I'm sorry, but that's just my take. Anywhere else you want to go with the Bears? I mean, as far as their actual moves, nothing crazy here.
I don't think they're that bad though.
I get what you're saying.
The defense gets me going.
I totally get what you're saying.
Hicks, Khalil Mack, Roquan Smith, Eddie Jackson.
Baller defense, all over the field, All right, well, let's go to Green Bay, and we got a little bit different graphic for you right now. Re-signed and losses because there's almost no additions from when I made this graphic, and I'll go back and double check before we post this, so maybe it's different on what you're looking at. But right now, they re-signed a bunch of guys. They lost some players. What's your reaction to this graphic? What do you think?
Preston Smith was vital to their pass rush. He's very important. I think Devin Funchess is an underrated, forgotten about guy who opted out because of the COVID year and who might be able to come in and actually have some valuable minutes in that weird second to third role where MVS and Lazard are always who's going to be that guy of the week. It could be Devin Funchess and just Devin Funchess' role. You know, Aaron Jones, $13 million averaged out a year, right, over 4 years or so. It's
4 for 48. I don't remember. Yeah, he got some good running back money for sure.
Pretty good. Didn't think it was going to happen after he hit the market.
I was shocked it happened. I'm not going to lie. I was shocked. I was convinced that you don't draft an A.J. Dillon if you're going to pay Aaron Jones. I don't really believe in paying the running backs, so I was pretty surprised. I think Aaron Jones probably could have gotten more on the open market, but I think he realized the value of staying in Green Bay. So, yeah, it was a surprising move, but I get it.
Man, maybe a couple million more going somewhere else, but to get to stay in this offense where he's at and now take away Jamal Williams – I think Aaron Jones is going to be the dude going forward. It didn't make any sense though because I think
they're going to do AJ Dillon is going if you were an Aaron Jones owner and I was last year or 2 years ago whatever it was and you watched the Green Bay Packers run the football, you hated Jamal Williams with a fucking passion because he got so many more snaps than he should, and I guarantee you're going to feel the same fucking way about AJ Dillon. I would be shocked if you don't.
It only makes sense because why use a last year first round pick on the quarterback and then a second round pick on the running back that we're not going to get to see for 2 to 3 years of development process? That doesn't make any sense. AJ Dillon will have to be involved into this. Looking at some of their losses, we already mentioned Jamal Williams, Christian Kirksey, interchangeable linebacker, Montrevious Adams, defensive end, but they'll be okay without him. He was kind of plug-and-play starter, if you will. They didn't lose anything that's detrimental to this team.
Corey Lindsley is the big one to me. That's a big very, very good center.
And it segues right into what they need on that draft, an interior offensive lineman. Yeah. They got to take care of that role.
Big need for him at IOL there down at the bottom corner. I think wide receiver, it's crazy that they're going into the season with the exact same need almost everywhere. D-line is only really a need because I feel like they lost some pieces, and I don't think it's a huge need, but I definitely wanted to put that in there. Linebacker, again, feel kind of the same way, but wide receiver and interior offensive line, I mean, big need. Yeah.
Where do you want them to go?
First round wide receiver. I can't remember exactly. They're drafting similarly, because they'd be drafting 28.
They're totally in like Rashad Bateman territory.
Yeah. They're drafting either 29 or 30 because they made it to the NFC Championship. So one of those two, they could get Bateman. I'm not as high. I don't think Bateman's a first rounder. I would rather
Kadarius Toney.
Kadarius Toney would be fucking awesome. I really like Terrace Marshall. I mentioned in a different video.
I'm a Rondale Moore believer. I know a lot of people.
I like Rondale Moore.
I could see a Rondale Moore here.
Rondale Moore makes a lot of sense for me. Rondale Moore is just like the injury keeps him out of the first round for me because he had that amazing, ridiculous season, and when he was on the field the past 2 years, he flashed everything you want to see. I mean, his explosiveness out of a cut is ridiculous, like absolutely fucking ridiculous. But I don't know if teams are going to be scared of the injury. So that's the only thing that gets me. But yeah, and any one of those guys, I think Elijah Moore's another underrated guy who's like early second kind of conversation that could get lucky and get drafted by the team that likes him. But yeah, I'd like to see wide receiver. I think the only reason I'd rather see wide receiver there than IOL is because I think you could get interior depth in second, third round and be fine. Yes. So
they desperately need to hit at the wide receiver position. I guess they keep pissing off Aaron Rodgers. He'll win another MVP, so something's working for him.
Fuck it. Draft another running back. Why not?
Do another quarterback. Yeah, get another. Go ahead, Green Bay.
Get Jamie Newman.
Piss him off?
Get Jamie Newman in the first. Fuck it. All right, let's move on to the Detroit Lions, and they have a lot of losses. I mean, we know what this is. This is a rebuild. This is the tear down before the rebuild, right? Looking at this graphic, what's your first reaction here?
Yeah, it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
But if you're a fan, you should be okay with it being bad. You want this. You want to see the coach come in. You want to see him have his guys around him. Strip the roster down, bare minimum, save your cap, get some picks, bring in some assets, ship guys out, get low-tier guys in. I think the Jared Goff move, I don't have a problem with that. Jared Goff wasn't the guy at the Rams. He was in a very good system, and we got to see flashes at times where it was formidable. Maybe he gets some legs under him. Maybe the system is built around him. Either way,
I think he's going to be a great backup for a long time. Yeah.
And no matter what, he is a placeholder until you're able to do what you're doing until then. Yeah. So, it is what it is. I'm not going to talk about what they have really. It's more of where they could go. In the draft, you name it.
Yeah, dealer's choice for a reason.
This is the reason we have the dealer's choice thing. They can go anywhere almost.
Yeah. I can't think of a position where I would be upset if they drafted in the first round. I really
running
can't.
Back is the only
running back. Yeah, well, yes, of course, yeah. But yeah, realistically, guys that should be there. Yeah, I absolutely agree. I 100% agree. This is what you're looking for. If you're a Detroit Lions fan, you're not looking for wins or losses. Who cares, right? You almost want to be in that top 3 range, number 1 range. Like you're fine with that. It's not going to be great. You want to see the grit. You want to see what we saw from the Dolphins in the 2019 season at the end. Grit from the players and belief in the coach that he is pushing his guys, getting the most out of them.
Last year's New York Giants team.
Exactly where I was going with it. Yes, you want to see that. I don't care about the wins. I want to see team. They could go 1-15 and it's a fine season as long as you saw this team fighting at the end of every single game, giving good teams a run for their fucking money and for 3.5 quarters. Maybe not being able to finish the game. That's fine. The talent's not going to be there compared to some of the good teams in the NFL. It's okay. You're not going to win a lot of games this year. But, man, if you can see that grit, you can believe in Dan Campbell moving forward. I like the personality. I like the energy that we're seeing from Detroit's front office. Hopefully we see that type of thing, and it's rebuild. Who doesn't like watching a good rebuild? I mean,
he said no matter what. I mean, they're going to go in there ready for a fight, no matter what it is.
Oh yeah, we're eating kneecaps, right?
Eating kneecaps. And that's what they're going to have to do because for the next 2 years they're going to be pretty down there. So
yeah,
get ready.
I absolutely agree. All right, we will move on. All right, let's move on over to the NFC South, and we are going to start with the Atlanta Falcons. Not a lot to say here. I mean, I think we agree with the storyline. I think for the most part here. We got the graphic up now. Didn't do a whole lot yet. Now, granted, there's still a lot of guys out in the market. This has been a really weird free agency period where we're not seeing as many signings early, and it makes sense. It is what it is. A couple big losses, but overall, I mean, what are you thinking with this Falcons team moving forward?
Alex Mack is a big loss. I mean, he has always been a top-tier center out there. So I think, where did he end up landing? At the 49ers. That's a massive one. We'll talk about them later. Looking at the team that the Falcons have right now, though, defensively, I don't know what you're going to do. There are so many different gaps that you have to fill. There are so many guys who are veterans but with injury status next to their name that you've just wanted to see do so well. Offensively, I love it.
Yeah.
Offensively, I would like to see Arthur Smith come in and take this same narrative that he did with the Titans early on. You have Julio Jones, Calvin Ridley, Hayden Hurst, and assuming that you're going to be able to go into this deep running back draft class and get one of those guys like a Najee Harris or Javonte Williams for me, I think Arthur Smith could rally around this team and offensively get things going. Defense is going to hold you back. Being in a division with the Saints and Buccaneers will also hold any team back as is. So, it's tough because you have an aging Matt Ryan. Julio Jones isn't getting any younger either. I don't know what you want to do going forward.
Yeah, so I absolutely agree. I think this is I personally would try and get one good year out of this offense left before Julio he's getting to the end of his career. You got Matt Ryan, who I can't imagine you feel like is going to be a starter in 2 years, 3 years. I definitely think if you made me guess 3 years from now, he's not the starter of the Falcons or any team. I do look at them as a team that could be in play for a quarterback at 4. I don't think they would be, but they could be.
Man, they could do it, though.
They could do it, or they take the best defensive player on the board. And you go defense anywhere. I think you find a fit for a defensive starter anywhere on that team at 4, and wherever they want to go, I'd be fine with. I mean, Parsons. It doesn't matter. Parsons,
I am screaming Parsons. I know it's early for linebacker. I know you.
But he's not even the consensus LB1 anymore.
I mean, people do crack too, though. Yeah. That's up to them. I'm telling you.
Joker, he's been getting some buzz.
Hit.
All right, we'll see. I don't know. I haven't looked at linebackers in this class, so I don't have any personal opinion. But yeah, look, I get what you're saying. I want to see this offense work. I do, and I think I love Najee Harris at 35 or 36. The beginning of the second round, grab Najee Harris, even trade up and land him because you get that running back in place, play Arthur Smith football, and you just have. Just outscore everybody. Fuck it. I mean, why not? Because your defense is a work in progress. But other than that, other than the running back at number 2, and if you don't draft a running back in the second round, you could pull a Panthers move. Honestly, they could pull a Panthers move, go all defense until like the 5th round, grab a running back there, and just you're probably gonna have to grab a running back somewhere in this draft. But other than that, I feel good about whatever they decide.
I don't
to do.
think it's a bad move.
Yeah, and honestly, there's some running backs on the market they could grab. They could grab a Chris Carson and feel like they're okay at that position. But we'll see. We'll move on. Let's go on over to the Panthers, who have a ton of moves, and we'll put the graphic up right now, and I'll let you react to it.
Cam Irving, it's a very good one.
Stud.
Pat
Elflein?
Yeah, from the Vikings
Stud.
at one point. Yeah, starter for sure. And, you had Hassan Reddick, who I know both of us talked about, was one of our favorite
Wanted him on the Dolphins so bad.
Yes, he's just so versatile with what he could do in that system. And for them to need defense like they did, I really love how they have attacked it and addressed it. And listen, they go into this draft and nip up a few of those loose ends, really get them a good standalone linebacker. Mm-hmm. I think it's looking, and a few cornerbacks here and there. I think it's looking pretty good. It's not that bad. You have some questions at the quarterback position with, Teddy Bridgewater, and there's a very good chance that if they don't do this Deshaun sweepstakes, that it could be quarterback for them. A lot of different things going to happen.
It's going to have to be quarterback.
They lost Weatherly on the defensive end. He came back to the Vikings from wherever he first started, but, it's not that big of a deal whenever you have so many interchangeable pieces like a Brian Burns.
They improved no matter what. I mean, you got Brian Burns. You have their first-round pick last year, your Auburn boy. Yeah, I think they improved.
Yeah.
I mean, Hassan Reddick, I think, is an improvement over Stephon Weatherly. Now that he's back at his position he needs to be in, he was trying to play stand-up linebacker with the Arizona Cardinals for 3.5 years, and it almost derailed his career. They finally let him put a hand in the dirt, and he got a lot better. Got like 12 sacks, I think, something like that. I absolutely agree. I think they're going in the right direction. I mean, they're an exciting football team.
Yeah, and you're able to lose to Curtis Samuel just because Robbie Anderson was able to step up and be a really good number 2. Samuel is a very good gadget thrower. I mean, I loved him being there, but there are replacements that you can find for your offense later on in the draft like that.
Man, good. You're going to trade up for a quarterback, and then you're gonna try and get like an Elijah Moore or something like that in the second round or third round. And I think that's what you probably end up trying to do. And I think that's okay. I think getting Elijah Moore would be a replacement to a Curtis Samuel for me. I think they have to go quarterback first round, right?
Yeah, I think so. Just depends on the way the board falls because I mean you want Matt Rule to, and he's smart enough to do this, to have his guy and get his guy and really be well equipped with that guy. So we'll have to see it. I like a lot of these pieces, kind of how you mentioned for my Vikings. In a vacuum, I really do like a lot of these players. And if they can start to piece it together, no, it's not going to be this year, and it probably won't be next year whenever they're legitimate threats. But it's coming.
Yeah, I think it's coming sooner than you do, actually. So, because I'm not sitting here saying that Bridgewater's horrible. I think he's a really, really, really good backup with very positive starting possibility.
You got good weapons.
We saw that, right? So, but at the end of the day, I've heard it a handful of times from different analysts. I think it's very clear that what the Panthers are thinking in the draft. People saying they lost 8 games in a 1-score game. And they feel like a good quarterback would put them over the edge and put them into a really good team. Their offense is ridiculous. I'm sorry, DJ Moore is a top 10 wide receiver in this league. I 1,000% believe that. You got Anderson, who's a really, really good number 2, and then Christian McCaffrey is the ultimate weapon, right? So you gotta love that. I think they want to grab a quarterback. Would not surprise me a bit if they trade up. I think I would almost predict it that they're going to trade up from 8 to 3.
They should
take
be the ones
Dolphins
to do
pick.
it.
Yeah,
yes, they should be the ones to do it.
And hey, I'd be fine as a Dolphins fan at 3. I would be fine trading down, and I think we talked about it a little bit. There's enough players that are going to be there at 8 that I would be totally fine with, securing a first and a second this year, and then a first next year. I think something like that.
It could be the world of a difference for Carolina if Matt Rule has his guy. Don't sit there and be complacent. Go get your guy and be done, and then you can deal with all the people later, whether it works out or not.
Yeah,
Justin Fields here, I love it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Justin Fields would be a good one. It would surprise me. I don't feel like they would be the team that grabs a Trey Lance just because I think they want a guy that's going to start year 1. Yeah. And Justin Fields, I feel more confident can go in, start, and figure out the NFL on the fly more than a Trey Lance that I really want to sit a year.
You said on the fly, he ran a 4.41. All of these hand times are killing me, man. He ran a 4.41.
There ain't no fucking way he runs a 4.41. Come on now. Ridiculous shit.
That's wild.
Bullshit. I'm sorry. No fucking. I stopped looking at it. Like, my whole grading system has to be changed for these, because I take into account combine scores and I take into account
you really
statistics
just need to look
like
at
that.
In-game speed now.
I'm taking that out of my grading system completely for this year alone, because I don't believe the pro day score, the pro day times. I don't believe any of it.
You hand me $2,000, I'll time you.
Yeah.
Swear to God. I'll shave it.
I'll shave it. All right. Hey, let's move on to the New Orleans Saints, and we're gonna put this graphic up.
Different.
I put in. All I did was give a bunch of Drew Brees. Got to give Drew Brees a little bit of love. Yeah. I couldn't put an X over it.
He's a goat, man.
He's a goat. I couldn't put an X over it. I was making the graphic, and I was like, let's give a minor tribute to Drew Brees. He's finally officially retired. Had to have his moment in the sun, and he's always been a little bit of a he likes the attention a little bit, and that's okay. So hey, great career. This is the new chapter for the New Orleans Saints. What are you thinking here with their first free agency moves?
Do you think Saints fans are happy?
I would be. I don't know, but I would be.
I can see outside in where I would be sad to see a legend go, but happy to see this because, I do feel like he kind of kept you limited back. And anyone who tries to deny me, I can show you at least 10 games last year where there are play calls where they bring in another quarterback just to push the ball down the field because that's just the way that it fell at the end of the day, Yeah. So we get to see what happens. We get to see Taysom Hill. Jameis Winston is maybe the guy. I don't know. Marcus Williams, great job tagging him. I'm surprised that they were able to tag him, but I guess just because of the way the market went with the safeties, it was safer to do that. Noah Spence, good defensive tackle. You lost a lot of stuff, though. You lost Trey Hendrickson. I know you're not as high on him as I was. They're going to be missing him. Janoris Jenkins, they're totally okay losing that. Malcolm Brown was a good starter on that defensive line. I think it's going to be worse.
Yeah, and I don't want to. They will miss Trey Henderson. I was just surprised he got $60 million over 4 years. He's getting $12 million a year. That was like
that's big boy money.
Yeah, that was big boy money. I don't think he was
the average fan knows who Trey Hendrickson is.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was my only issue with the Trey Hendersons. That was more of a Cincinnati Bengals signing him, not the Saints letting him go. I do think that'll be a loss. Overall, though, surprised they were able to get a deal done with Jameis Winston. You see, it's re-signed instead of additions because they really just had to re-sign everybody that they like.
They don't have the money.
They're reloaded. Yeah, they're kind of they're in a weird spot where I think next year they're going to be able to really reload and make some moves. This year, I kind of hope. I think they take a minor rebuild approach to this season, this 2021 season. If they try and push, I think they will kind of fall on their face a little bit. I'd like to see them go D-line, trenches. I wouldn't even really worry about the wide receiver too unless you're in like the third or fourth round, then grab a wide receiver. I would add a safety. I would add a developmental quarterback, maybe a Kellen Mond in the second round, something like that, just to add to the we don't know what Jameis Winston is right now. We're not really going to know until probably this time next year when we'll see what they decide to do with Jameis Winston. And I do feel like I know that that their guy Taysom Hill is not going to be. I don't think he's going to be the starting quarterback of the Saints ever, but he'll be an interesting gadget guy.
Start. That doesn't mean he should be the starting.
No, not long term. He's a.
My wet dream. This is where I want Trey Lance to go because I know you said you have a preference for Trey Lance to sit for a year.
Yeah, this would be a good spot.
Would not bother me if he sat for a year here at all. Yeah. I don't want to throw him out to the flames because I think he is capable of doing it. You're not going to get your best version of Trey Lance, so why do that to him? Yeah. He goes here with Sean Payton though. They're going to have to move up for him, of course. Yeah. But I would love that. That's where I want to see him go.
Yeah. I mean, and then you get to learn behind another inaccurate quarterback with a big arm. I mean, it'd be perfect for him. Damn. I got him.
It's a good one. I like it.
All right. Anywhere else you want to go with this? You agree?
Still a very good football team. 9-7.
Going to be a pain in the ass for a lot of football teams.
I think they're going to get a wild card spot.
Yeah, and I said minor rebuild for a reason. I understand they're stacked. They have a really good roster. I just don't think they're making a Super Bowl push this year. So be okay with that and kind of plan, make a 2-year run. And this time next year, we could be talking about them as a serious Super Bowl contender.
Yeah, they're literally just falling back to where almost every other team in the NFL is, to where you're pushing for the playoffs and you still could mess around and have some stuff happen. Yeah. The reason you're not getting the division though is because this next team they're about to roll into, who is locked and reloaded, and they are good to go, and Tom Brady's going to go get 8.
I mean, you talk about reloaded, man.
They didn't lose. Look at those losses.
Take it over. I mean, I want you. This is your love affair.
They didn't lose anything. It is my love affair. I love the number 7, but Brady's gonna get 8.
You think he's going to get 8?
He's getting 8.
I don't think he's getting 8.
This team is locked and loaded, ready to go. Levante David, Shaq Barrett, Kevin Minter, Rob Gronkowski. Ryan Sugup's a damn good kicker. And Chris Godwin, they tagged.
Look,
they didn't skip a beat.
They didn't. And look, you talk about a Leonard Fournette who's still on the market. They might get him back. You talk about a Sue who's still on the market. They might get him back. We don't know what's going to happen with those guys, so we didn't put them on the list. But yeah, you're absolutely right. They attacked every single position. Like, going into free agency, there's no fucking way I would have thought you were going to be able to pay them all. There's no fucking way I thought you were going to keep David, Barrett, and Godwin on the same football team. I just did not think it was possible. The fact that Barrett didn't go get a payday from either the Jets or the Jags is ridiculous to me, but I think he thought he was getting another ring, and he has a good chance to do it.
It is the GOAT effect. We have only seen that in one other sport, basketball, with LeBron James. Tom Brady has that same effect. Guys are drawn to him. Guys want to go play there. I never thought that we would talk about Tampa Bay in this light, where they are just the hot spot. They are the team. I think they're ready to go, man.
Yeah, look, I don't blame you
It's
at all
only
for
going to
thinking
get better.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. Hey, at 32, where do you draft? Is there a positional, or do you just
best player?
You agree with me on that? I put that in there, and
I like that because there's no gap. You have a kick-ass defense. You have a very good offense with Tom Brady at the helm. Best player.
Offensive line was great last year. Yeah, you could pretty much go any position. And I was nervous to do this because I looked at, I thought about the Eagles in 2017 when they won the Super Bowl, and we were going into that draft season. And it was like, man, they're great everywhere. It doesn't matter.
That's true.
And how quickly that turned around. So realistically, hey, linebacker, go get a young linebacker to preemptively replace Levante David. Go get a young DN to preemptively replace Shaq Barrett. Both of those guys, Levante David has a 2-year contract. Shaq Barrett, I don't remember what his contract was, but I would think he wants to get paid. I thought he just did a 1-year deal. I could be wrong about that. I don't remember off the top of my head.
I'm not wanting to look towards the end. I'm living in the now.
I get. Well, I'm thinking.
Live in the
draft.
now.
I'm thinking about draft needs. Where do you go in the draft? Go draft Go get replacements for some of the guys that are still on your team. That's what I would do. Fair enough.
Number 8.
Number 8. Hey, we'll see. All right, that does it. We have one division left. All right, let's move on to the NFC West, the last division we are talking about in this marathon of a podcast. If you are still with us on the actual podcast, thank you so much. If you are just clicking on this video to watch the NFC West breakdown of their free agency and draft needs, thanks for joining us. Go check out the rest of the show if you're interested. All right, additions and losses for the Seattle Seahawks. Let's put this graphic up now. Where are you at with this, man? It's an interesting list of guys that they lost, and not names that I would have expected them to go after.
Not at all, especially with all the controversy with Russell Wilson saying he's tired of being hit, got to go get some linemen. You got guys like Trent Williams, Alex Mack, all these other guys out there, big names.
There's a bunch of offensive linemen on the board.
And there still are offensive linemen out there too, so they could patch up some of these holes by the time that this comes out. We would have that updated by now. But at the time being, Gabe Jackson came over from the Raiders. He's a starter. Yeah. Not bad. So
they traded for him. They made a move to get him.
They're acknowledging that. They got a Gerald Everett, who I think could really help out that tight end position, stretching the field a little bit. So, but they had some losses.
Yeah, they definitely did. I mean, nothing major yet. Chris Carson could come back, just to be clear, but I don't expect him to. That's why we put it on there. And if he does, then we'll update that as needed.
The only major one, and it's not really a major player, it's just a major positional need that they heard on last year, was Shaq Griffin.
Yeah, cornerback. I mean, yes. They need a corner. They need multiple corners, and it's weird to say. The good thing is their scheme kind of easy to find guys that fit their scheme in the mid rounds, right? They can find some long corners that can run. I mean, and that's really all you kind of need for the most part. So that's doable. I think Gerald Everett is an underrated signing. I think I believe in the talent of a Gerald Everett. I think he's a very talented tight end in general, and I do believe him going to the Seahawks. I could see them finally getting the answer at the tight end position with the Gerald Everett. I think that was a big signing that's going untalked about for the most part.
Is that some fantasy vibes?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, because Gerald Everett, he was the guy who was consistently going in and getting some uses with the Rams, but he just didn't get the opportunity to really be a fantasy relevant tight end. He was like a week to week, maybe you start him, maybe he gets a touchdown type of guy, and most tight ends are that in fantasy for the most part. I could see him leveling up to you start him every week kind of thing. He's a guy that I would target late in drafts and think, hey, maybe he levels up and becomes a guy that you can start every single week. I'm not saying he'll become a top 3 tight end, but I definitely think he could be a good option.
Does the Russell Wilson MVP thing take back off? Because it took off, and then at week 10 it fizzled out, and then I think that was when he lost. Whenever they had that rough 2 to 3 week stretch where he lost his MVP.
Yeah.
Can he pick that back up and keep running with it?
So, look, I would actually argue that more of the responsibility for Russell Wilson's struggle and the passing game struggle belongs on the scheme and the passing scheme, like the schematics of the passing game, than it does Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson certainly threw more interceptions than he should have in that couple week span, as you're talking about. And I am of the opinion that, like, I don't know if Pete Carroll and Russell Wilson are going to be on the same team in 2 years. Obviously, they're going to run it together this year, but I think something's going to give. And is ownership going to step in and take the side of a Russell Wilson, or is it going to be a Pete Carroll thing? I think it's going to end up being Pete Carroll's team, and he might decide to move on from Russell Wilson if the right deal arises. But I think that's going to be a Pete Carroll thing, because everything that I've seen about the way the ownership system works with the Seahawks is that everything's kind of,
he has the keys, man.
He has the keys to the castle, and the owner is the sister of the original owner, and I'm blanking on her name right now, but it's just kind of in the family, and she's low maintenance. Like, she's not
the Allen family.
It's the Allen family. It's Judy Allen. Thank you so much. The owner of the Seahawks is not hands on right now, and Pete Carroll has the keys to that castle right now, as you said. I absolutely agree. So I think it's more likely that it's a Russell Wilson departing this team, really having a serious turnover in a couple of years. I'd like that not to be the case. I'd like them to revamp the passing game and revamp the offense in general. But I think we saw them try to do that this year, and it kind of fell apart, and they went back to what Pete Carroll feels comfortable with. And it's a scary thing, because on paper, that the pieces that they have on the offense, you put in a lot of other coaches, a lot of other schemers' hands. And I mean, this is a dominant force in the NFL that is likened to the Chiefs. I'll go that far to say it. I mean, I think I believe in the amount of talent that they have, and I believe that there is something there that could be super fucking special.
No, they should be getting Lombardis. They should at least be getting to that championship game every single year, where we see whoever it is in the NFC that's lining up alongside of them. They should be the constant variable, the Chiefs of the NFC. Essentially, I mean, they have the weapons to do so. Yeah. Yes, their defense is lacking, but I mean, they're very similar when you look at the Chiefs and Seahawks in that regard.
Yeah.
I'm led back to where we had that correlation a few weeks ago, talking about a Mike McCarthy and a Pete Carroll, how they are synonymous almost with, they got the Super Bowl with their young star at the time early, and then they have been in this constant, very, very successful team. But at the end of the day, if you're not bringing home the ring, or if you're not competing for that ring every single year in, year out, Seattle has done a better job than Green Bay did for many years with at least getting deep into the playoffs. Yeah. Another Super Bowl appearance, a few championships here and there, but something's got to give at a certain point. Yeah. And I think you're right. I think it's going to be. I think sadly they're going to get an offer that you can't say no to eventually.
Yeah, and especially if Russell really starts to push it, because I think the difference between, because I absolutely agree, there's a lot of parallels, and I talked about it in this video I did for Hammercast, where there's a lot of parallels between Aaron Rodgers and McCarthy split and the Russell Wilson Pete Carroll split, and I can connect a lot of dots there, and I think at the end of the day, the one difference between the way Russell Wilson's handling it now and the way Aaron Rodgers handled it then is Russell Wilson is playing the media, and he's using the media to his advantage. Aaron Rodgers has really never been good at that. Aaron
Rodgers got pinned as the bad guy out of that situation.
He did, and really this year's the first year he started to use the media in the sense that he did he used to do an hour-long podcast with Pat McAfee every week on his show on Tuesdays. I used to watch it every week during the seasons, and you actually got to see the person behind the mask a little bit, and he really never let people see that, and it's one of those things where he just now has gotten that realization. Oh shit, I kind of need people to like me in this game. At the end of the day, there's a game behind the game, and that's the business side of it. Russell Wilson understands that a little bit more and is using that to his advantage. Every move that has been made with regards to Russell Wilson in the media has been calculated, and I think that will continue to be the case, and we're going to see how it unfolds. I don't know, but it's going to be interesting.
Damn good team going forward.
Damn good team. Hey, let's get back to it just to talk about draft needs. Do we agree? Just fortify the trenches. Are we in the same boat there?
And defensive back, cornerback.
Yeah, so wherever they go, got to be one of those. Pretty good year to need an offensive lineman, as I've said a handful of times in this pod. But yeah, good. Go draft an offensive lineman in the first round. Don't care where it is. All right, we will move on. Let's move on over to the Rams. Team with a ton of turnover, a lot of losses, a couple additions, but strangely still feels like they got a lot better, even though there's a lot of names that they're about to lose.
You have maybe, I'm not even going to count, maybe 10 names on the losses. You have 2 on the additions. They're better.
They're better.
This is a team to watch out for this next year, and it's because of the number 9 right there with his arms up, Matt Stafford.
Yeah.
I think he's going to propel this team with Sean McVay and this offense. They are going to set the NFL on fire. And this is a hard division to do that in because you can look at each 1, 2, 3, 4 Cardinals, Rams, Seahawks, 49ers. Any of them could win it. So it's hard to put your name behind one of them. I'm going to put it behind the Rams. All of them are great teams, but I think Matt Stafford and all of these offensive weapons, and you have a damn good defense with Aaron Donald, who is the current reigning Defensive Player of the Year.
Yeah.
Jalen Ramsey, you have some solid linebackers. There are names across the board, man.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And look, I'll put this graphic back up, and you see the draft needs in the bottom right. You know, the safety, cornerback, linebacker is the top 3, right? All of those are like their needs. Like they're not like pressing needs for the team.
They need a safety because they lost John Johnson.
They do. Safety's like the big one, but cornerback, linebacker, they're going to be fine. They need a cornerback too, kind of. They need a linebacker, kind of. But I think they're going to be fine there. Offensive line, you can always use offensive linemen. But yeah, there's not really a part of this defense that I'm worried about. I think John Johnson, was one of the biggest losses. I think him and Gerald Everett were the 2 biggest losses for their team. Hey, you can't pay everybody, and they have some big contracts to some really good players. So you have to make some concessions there. This team has always been really good at drafting. They don't have a first-round pick. They seem to hate first-round picks, which, I mean, I think they're a team that feels like they're going to be drafting in the late 20s, so why not turn a first-round pick into a superstar?
I see their mindset.
Yeah, it's worked. I mean, strangely enough, it has kind of worked. There's been some misses with, I would argue, like a Cooks was maybe a misstep, but other than that, I mean...
But it brought them to a Super Bowl. I'm telling you, you put Matt Stafford on that 2017 Super Bowl team, that's a game over right there. I'll tell you who wins that ring.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I absolutely agree. Yeah, because Matt Stafford would have made that throw in the end zone that Jared Goff botched. So yeah, I look at this team as a superstar. Not a whole lot of additions. Obviously, really just Matt Stafford in the trade and Leonard Fournette re-signed, or Leonard Floyd re-signed. Excuse me. Anywhere else you want to go with this?
One last thing, fantasy fun fact: Sean McVay has said that Cam Akers can be a 1 through 3 down back.
Absolutely agree. Cam Akers is like he's a top 5 running back for me next year in fantasy.
There we go.
I absolutely agree with that. I think Cam Akers is going to be a stud. He's in a perfect situation on a team with a better quarterback, going to have a better offense around him. And I understand people are like, oh, well, they're going to be throwing more. No, they're going to have the same fucking system. They just have a guy who can make throws that Jared Goff couldn't. So they're going to get first downs on third downs that Jared Goff couldn't finish. So yeah, it's only going to be good for Cam Akers. Absolutely agree. Let's move on to the Arizona Cardinals, who look. I
expect you to gas them up here.
This is the year, man. I always talk about the 3-year rebuild, right? And I talked about last year was year 2 of the 3-year rebuild, and they showed promise. This is year 3, and they have done, I think, everything right from where they used to be to where they are now. Do you have questions about the quarterback and the scheme in general? Sure. Yeah, I don't know how it's going to work long term, but gosh dang, goddamn, whatever you want to say. I don't know why I didn't cuss there. I don't have a problem cussing, but you trade for a Rodney Hudson, a 3rd round pick for a Rodney Hudson, and you got a 7th round in return for a little bit extra compensation. But a 3rd round pick for a Rodney Hudson, who's a stud center, superstar. You're good there. You get an AJ Green. I don't know what you're going to get out of him, but I mean, I am excited to see the leadership.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm excited to see the leadership at worst, and at best, you're gonna have a good player. You're getting the last little bit of talent out of him before he calls it quits. Same for JJ Watt, leadership move at the very worst. Matt Prater replaces a Zane Gonzalez, a minor kicker move. We don't spend a lot of time talking about, but I mean, definitely a positive, I would say. Even though I did like Zane Gonzalez, he was on a lot of my fantasy teams. You look at draft needs. You need help at cornerback. You lost Patrick Peterson. That's a big one. But Patrick Peterson, he's lost a step. I would like Patrick Peterson to transition to safety in my perfect world. Maybe not this year, but maybe next year. I would like him to do that type of move. Linebacker, yeah, you need some help with a stand-up linebacker. Again, you got Isaiah Simmons last year, and I do think you need maybe another.
Let him loose.
Yeah, and I think they kind of struggled to figure out where they wanted him. But at the end of the season, I feel like they've, Vance Joseph kind of figured it out and started to use him in the right setting. Tight end, I put it on there. I don't really think this team values tight end very highly, so I'm not really worried about that. And then offensive line, again, yeah, there's some pieces there. This team can be really good. Kyler Murray's going to be exciting this year. They have the weapons. I'm ready to go. I'm ready to see them let it loose.
Sky is the limit.
Sky is
the limit. This team is capable. They have every box checked. If J.J. Watt is able to come in and be more than a voice, which I know he is capable of with his work ethic. And I am down for the A.J. Green hype train right now. I think with a DeAndre Hopkins, maybe a Larry Fitz comes back, you have a Christian Kirk, you have an A.J. Green, who A.J. Green got a lot of targets last year. A lot of them were heavily contested targets that old A.J. Green could reel in and bring down. Just A.J. Green just wasn't able to do it this past year. He had some flashes here and there. Maybe in this system he is. I think, and it's not up here, I think they need to get running back.
Okay.
I want to see.
That needs to be up there.
Yeah, I want to see Javonte Williams.
Yeah, I'm going to add that. That's going to be in there in the final thing because you're absolutely right. Running back's a big thing.
I think running back, if they could get that three-headed monster, because I know they have more than that, three weapons, but get the quarterback, running back, wide receiver thing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, this team could take off.
Yeah, because Kenyon Drake I was disappointed. He showed some serious flash when they traded for him in that second half of the season of the 2019 season when he came over from the Dolphins, and then 2020 he lost a step. It just is what it is. And I like the guy they have from the small school. I think the guy from like Fordham, Chase Edmonds from like Fordham, and he's a good little back there. They need to add another dude. I would love that for them. Javonte Williams would be my guy.
I have Najee to the Falcons. I have Travis Etienne to the Jets. Just where it lines up in my head makes sense.
Yeah, where you like the best fit.
Javonte at the Cardinals, man.
That's an awesome fit. I really agree with that. Yeah. I 100% agree. I don't have anything else anywhere else to go with this.
I'm good.
All right. Let's move on to the last team we are going to talk about. This is the last team. We are almost done. All right. 49ers. Let's talk about it. What do you like? What do you dislike? Let's hear it.
I like the team as a whole. Looking at the re-signed Trent Williams, they made him the highest paid offensive lineman that we have ever seen out there, and they should have done it because the guy is getting pancakes at the second and sometimes third level back there. What's up?
Oh no, I was going to ask you. Are you worried about his age at 33?
Not worried about that. I saw his motor that he played with last year, and dude was just pancaking everyone out there. That's what he wants to do. Then they were able to bring in an Alex Mack at center too. I think that is a huge addition to the offensive line. A team that if they can stay healthy, because they were just decimated by that last year, and they still fought hard in a lot of times where they shouldn't have with a Nick Mullins?
Nick Mullins, yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's why I mentioned a Nick Mullins because they lost to Solomon Thomas real quick. A guy who didn't really pan out. We'll see what he can become.
Yeah.
Other than that, Kendrick Bourne, you can plug and play different wide receivers in there, and you'll be okay. But I mentioned Nick Mullins because we have an injured Jimmy Garoppolo, and you are not done with Jimmy G.
No, I'm not. I look at Jimmy G as a guy who's been hurt the past 2 years. I get it. I feel pretty confident the upside is not what I thought it could be. But overall, I still think he can be a fine starter. And like they're drafting at 12. Do you trade up and try and get one of the top guys? You have to jump ahead of Carolina if you believe Zach Wilson's gone at 2, right? So if you want one of those other next tier quarterbacks, you got to jump ahead of Carolina and make a move if you want to do that. I don't know if they want to do that. We'll see what happens. But I look at Jimmy G as the guy to keep it going. He has to stay healthy. That's the big thing.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a better decision. I don't think there's a better move to be made. Maybe if they like one of these rookies and they'd rather run it with one of them, I think even if you do that, you still keep Jimmy G as the starter for a year. I mean, I would be fine with that.
I don't think there's a guy out there that, yes, there are quarterbacks that are better and will be better than a Jimmy G, but looking at the system that you have with a Kyle Shanahan and the way that things have been going, the ship is fine. It's sailing. You got beat up last year and everything, but with Jimmy G there, if you were to bring in a Justin Fields, for instance, he's got to get used to the speed of the game. He's got to get used to the plays and the
decision making has to improve. Yeah,
there's a lot of different things that you got to do that I think Jimmy G already has that checked, and as long as he's healthy, he's good to go there. I think they're going to take cornerback first round.
Really? Okay. So you want to say Farley?
I want to see the secondary help out.
Surtain would be your guy at 12. Okay. Yeah. Hey, I like that a whole lot. I agree with that. I think you hit it, man. I agree. They did everything they needed to do with the offensive line. We look at this team as like a team. Oh, they're picking 12. They weren't that good last year. Their entire team got hurt. Like the star of their offense and the star of their defense got hurt, and everybody in the middle got hurt. You look at this team, great wide receiver core for the most part. You like their offensive line. You love their tight end. Love their running backs. You love the scheme in general. Quarterback you can have a question about, but I think he can run the system fine. You go to defense. Their defensive line is still going to be really good. You like their linebackers, although definitely could use some improvement there. And then corner you said is the biggest need on the defense. Overall, this team, I mean, shit, they could be fucking awesome. They could be awesome.
And awesome means Super Bowl.
Yeah, they have the potential.
They can do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the last thing that we'll do then, I think this is the best division in football. 1, 2, 3, 4 it for me right now.
Really quick.
I'm not going to hold you to it because I know we do episodes later, but it is so stacked.
It's so stacked, and I feel bad doing this. God, it's
because
so
you're
hard.
Gonna have
Who do you put it for?
You're going to have a damn good team at 4.
Who do you put it for?
You're going to put Kyler at 4? Are you going to really put Matt Stafford that I just gassed up at 4? You very well could. Or is it going to be the 49ers?
I'm going to go Rams, Cardinals, 49ers, Seahawks.
Seahawks?
At 4.
Oh my gosh, it's so hard to do.
That's impossible to do.
I
feel bad. I feel dirty. I want to change it. I don't know. I want to put but I don't want to put 49ers last because I think they're going to I don't fucking know.
Seahawks, Rams, 49ers, Cardinals. And I do not feel
I just
strong
guessed
about
at the Cardinals though.
That's what I'm saying. It's so hard to do this. This is a very competitive
God,
division.
I don't know. It was hard last year. I think it's harder this year. That's crazy. Yeah, I don't know. I don't feel good about the way I put it, the order I put it. I want to move the Seahawks up, but I don't know who to move down. I don't know, like maybe the Rams.
It's so hard because we
QB1.
Look at each team individually and it's like, man, they're good. They're going to be good. And it's like, okay, but now go play that good team that you just also gassed up. It's like, well, I don't know.
Now go play these 6 games that are going to be really fucking hard.
I don't know what's going to happen now.
All right. Hey, we'll end it on that note, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you have made it this long and you are not subscribed, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Hit that subscribe button. Thank you so much for watching this long. Thank you so much to everybody who has supported us lately. We will not talk any longer, guys. Peace out.
7.